You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1853. 1853 Chapter 414 Dante Panic in the Face of Danger 2. An umbrella-shaped weapon appeared in Zhang Wuxuang's hand. The next moment, he opened the umbrella and the surrounding death aura automatically retreated. He held the umbrella and led the late-stage sun-moon expert of the heavenly celestial race. They walked through the air and looked down at the dead spirits. As for the dead spirits, they automatically ignored him. Zhang Wuxuang's face was cold. Divine light burst out of his eyes and he kept glancing at the dead souls. Was Su Yu hiding among them? It was very chaotic at the beginning. The human race was making trouble and killing everywhere. The dead souls kept appearing and running around. They had no time to carefully investigate. Now, the immortal race, demon race, and dragon race were all staring at the human experts. In fact, everyone had a tacit understanding. Find Su Yu. It was a good thing that the Celestials had lost, but Su Yu had to be killed. This fellow was becoming more and more threatening, and more terrifying. Also, how did he disguise himself as a dead spirit? Was Su Yu's disguising ability that powerful? And the Five Elements clan was also investigating. Now, many things were clear. Su Yu might have captured Tendo and pretended to be Tendo. The floating earth spirit might know something, so it was targeted by Su Yu. Now that the floating earth spirit was not dead, it was probably imprisoned somewhere. Su Yu was too much of a threat. There was no Ling Yun or Su Yu who would cause a lot of trouble whenever they went to a place. In the distance, a few late-stage sun-moon experts were also investigating. Their objective was very simple, it didn't matter if they killed Su Yu. They wouldn't kill him if they could. In any case, they couldn't kill him by themselves. However, when they encountered him, they had to snatch Su Yu. Who wouldn't be tempted by 2,300 rays of heaven and earth mystic light treasures? As for whether or not the celestial race would come and take it, they wouldn't give it to you. You spent it yourself. We snatched it from Su Yu's side. What qualifications do you have to take it? Including Gu Shan, a few late-stage sun-moon experts who traveled alone were continuously searching. There were only about 2,000 dead souls in the city. Actually, it was still very easy to investigate. Even if the number kept increasing, it would be easier to expose Su Yu's hiding place. Only he would assassinate the dead souls everywhere at this moment. At this time, the number of dead souls stopped increasing. Obviously, Su Yu had given up on assassinating. In the distance, Zhang Wuxuang was walking in the air. He did not have any carelessness. At any time, he would bring a late-stage sun-moon realm warrior to investigate the dead souls one by one. He said coldly, Su Yu, I know you are here. Hand over the things I just gave you and let bygones be bygones. Invincible was coming. But it would take some time. Before that, he had to take back the things he had given. Otherwise, he, Zhang Wuxuang, would disappoint Invincible. Although this time, he was not the only one who had been deceived. Everyone had been deceived. However, only he had paid a large amount of treasures. The two late-stage sun and moon cultivators were actually only supporting him. He was the one in charge this time. He was about to enter the 9th level of the mountain and sea realm. Once he entered the sun-moon realm, he would become one of the true rulers of the Protoss race. However, if he lost so many people at this moment and suffered such heavy losses, then he would be greatly affected. He had to get the items back before the Invincible arrived. It would be best if he captured Su Yu or killed him. Only then would he be able to avenge himself. On the side of the demon race, Devo transmitted his voice to Madhwa. Madhwa, are we going to look for Su Yu? Let the celestial race try first. Madhwa looked around and transmitted his voice, be careful. If that guy still has Yi Ba's heavenly divine prose, it will still be dangerous if he suddenly bursts out. Devo didn't think much of it. Could he kill someone at the 7th level of the Sun-Moon realm? If he could, then it would be heaven-defying. Mordor's performance these few times didn't seem to fit his status as the number 1 on the heaven roll. Alright, he was now number 2 on the heaven roll. Mordor didn't explain anything. Since the celestial race wanted to be the vanguard, there was no need for them to step out now. Anyway, the losses of the demon race didn't seem small. Tendo died, but the genius died and was killed by someone of the same level. To be honest, Mordor didn't care that much. A genius who was killed was not considered a genius. Including himself, if one day he was killed by someone of the same level, that would be normal. It could only be said that he was not a genius to the point where he could sweep through all the other races of the same level. That was because he was not a genius enough. Modwa looked around for a while, then looked at the ancient houses around him. Suddenly, he said, "We have to investigate the ancient houses. He is a living person, not a dead spirit. He can enter the ancient houses to take refuge." As soon as he said that, many experts moved out to check the ancient houses around them. Modwa did not care. After pondering for a moment, he said again, "Last time, he directly passed through the ancient city and left. It is best for everyone to pass the message through the heaven-hunting pavilion. Have the experts surround him from all directions in the ancient city. Be careful that he doesn't pass through and leave." As soon as he said that, some experts quickly communicated with the outside world again. Naturally, they passed the message through the heaven-hunting pavilion sub-ranking. Of course, they had to charge a fee. The white mask of the heaven-hunting pavilion was also present. At this moment, he was secretly passing the news to the elders, asking them to charge a little more. No matter how expensive it was, these fellows would still spend money to do things. Suyu was actually a good way for them to earn money. As an observer of the heaven-hunting pavilion, he was also continuously passing the news back to the elders through the heaven-hunting pavilion. As for the others, they could pass other news, but they couldn't pass the information about the ancient city. They all had to be sold by the heaven-hunting pavilion. It was a monopoly. In just a short while, the various races of the heaven-hunting pavilion had sold the information about 1,000 times. The price wasn't high. A drop of sun and moon blood essence to send information to you for an hour didn't seem too expensive. In fact, it was frighteningly expensive. Of course, the ones who were willing to buy now were the various races. For individuals, the lowest price was the sun and moon, or the top geniuses of the various races. They could afford this price. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1854. 1854 Chapter 414, Don't Panic When Things Go Wrong 3. In just a short while, the heaven-hunting pavilion had earned over 1,000 drops of sun and moon blood essence. Suyu did not know either, or else he would go crazy. He had worked hard for a long time and paid a huge price. He risked his life and earned 2,300 wisps of heaven and earth mystic light, which was only worth 2,300 drops of blood essence. Of course, there were also some sun and moon blood essence, which totaled up to more than 2,500 drops. However, the heaven-hunting pavilion relied on a sub-ranking list and used Suyu's information to sell some information to the 10,000 clans. In the blink of an eye, the profit was not necessarily less than Suyu's, and not many people cared about it. That was because they sold too much. A few drops of blood essence was a pitiful amount for a family. To a large clan, this was really nothing. Of course, Suyu did not know about all of this. The heaven-hunting pavilion didn't bother about Suyu anymore. They didn't pursue him. In fact, White Mask had received the news. If they really met Suyu, he would secretly help them stall for time so that the heaven-hunting pavilion could have more time to broadcast. Yes, broadcast. Broadcast the turmoil in the ancient city. Send news every hour. This was a big deal. When Invincible came, even the most recent Invincible wouldn't be able to come for half a day. If they were far away, it would be normal for them to leave from the territory for a day or two. Thus, if he wanted to get some information, he would have to rely on the heaven hunting pavilion. This was a monopoly. Since that was the case, Suyu would have to drag it out. Now that Suyu was captured and dead, he wouldn't have a chance to make a lot of money. If he dragged it out for half a day, Suyu wouldn't make as much as they did. At this moment, Suyu didn't know what the heaven hunting pavilion was thinking, nor was he interested in finding out. The safe house that he had arranged had some effect. At this moment, Suyu was hiding in a safe house. Outside, there were signs of the residents of the ancient city. In reality, Suyu wasn't considered a resident of the ancient city, but he had built dozens of such safe houses. Those guys will sooner or later discover something abnormal. I just used the aura of death now, but they haven't thought of it yet. Very soon, they will probably think that I might be able to disguise as a dead spirit and carve the ancient house. The most obvious thing about the residents of the ancient city was that the wooden tablet would carve their own appearance. Right now, those fellows were busy searching for him among the undead, but there were only a few thousand of them. They would be finished soon. At that time, they would have to check the ancient houses. Fortunately, there were many ancient houses, so these fellows couldn't break into all the houses to check. In the small house, Suyu wasn't in a hurry either. There was no need to panic. What was there to panic about? It wasn't that he didn't have a backup plan. He still had a trick up his sleeve to trick people in the ancient city. Right at this moment, there was a loud explosion outside. A loud explosion suddenly erupted from an ancient house. In the next moment, countless dead souls appeared. And right at this moment, someone cursed angrily. Damning manner. Zhu Guangshan, what a good deed you've done. Outside, Zhu Guangshan was speechless as he looked at the large black ants that had been blown up everywhere in the distance. He said helplessly, "It has nothing to do with me. It's probably Suyu. This thing, he might have brought a lot of sky-swallowing ant eggs in Daming Mansion." The explosion just now had killed a large nest of ants. There was no way to calculate how many there were. And this counted as living creatures. At this moment, the number of dead souls in the entire ancient city instantly increased by several thousand. Of course, none of them were strong, but with so many of them, Zhan Wushuang and the others could not contain their anger. F***CK. What should they do? They could still investigate one by one just now, but now. Suddenly, there were several thousand more dead souls. Moreover, they still did not know how many Suyu had arranged. It could only be said that they had never played like this in the ancient city, and Suyu was very good at playing. He played until everyone was a little crazy. That's right, killing living creatures in the ancient city would lead to the emergence of undead. Whoever was killed would be killed. Killing people would be killing. Killing experts would be killing. Killing ants, that was also killing. Suyu also knew that Zhu Guangshan had come, so he thought of this matter. Only then did he remember that when he left Daming Manor, he had brought some sky-swallowing ant eggs. Everyone felt that they had learned a lot. Zhu Guangshan, who had learned a lot, casually threw countless sky-swallowing ants into an empty ancient house as if he had not noticed it. Damn, Suyu, what a good idea. Why didn't I think of it? I brought so many ants for nothing. If I had known earlier, wouldn't hundreds of thousands of dead souls appear after killing hundreds of thousands of them? How terrifying. The entire ancient city would soon become a dead city. Although there weren't too many powerful dead souls, there were too many massacres. The dead souls wouldn't be able to kill these people for a long time. The sun and moon dead souls would continue to appear. Moreover, the aura of death was too dense. At that time, everyone would have no choice but to enter the ancient house to take refuge. At that time, it would probably be Su Yu's chance. Zhu Guangxin could already guess Su Yu's plan. Just like him, the other sun and moon also frowned. F***ck. They really hadn't thought about this. No one was thinking about killing those ants in the ancient city. Were they too bored? If killing ants could draw out the undead, next time, should they bring in even smaller creatures to kill? Of course, those who had nothing to do and wanted to take revenge on society could try. Normal people did not need to try this. Boom! Another explosion. This time, thousands of undead appeared again. Zhu Guangxin had a shocked expression on his face as he cursed silently. It had nothing to do with me. I just learned how to explode ants myself. Bastard! A sun and moon cursed angrily. There were thousands more. F***ck, if this went on, there would be more than 10,000 undead. Soon, even more powerful undead would appear. In the old house. Su Yu slightly opened a small crack in the door to listen to the sounds outside. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1855. 1855 Chapter 414 Don T Panic if something happens 4. There was another explosion. There were several thousand more undead, and the aura of death was so thick that it was frightening. Su Yu was also surprised. What was going on? This time, it wasn't me. Could it be Zhu Guangxin and the others? There was no one else besides them. Su Yu couldn't help but laugh. This old Zhu family's crown prince was also a little cunning. Was he trying to shift the blame to me? It's pretty good. He didn't have that many ants on hand. Killing other things wasn't worth it and was too troublesome. It was better to kill a nest of ants, a nest of several thousand. If he had known that the ancient city could be played like this, Su Yu would have brought hundreds of thousands of ants. Unfortunately, he didn't bring much and only brought that nest. After the explosion, there were only so many undead. Now, it's not bad. There are several thousand, tens of thousands of undead. I'll let you continue to investigate them one by one. I'm afraid Invincible has been alerted. They didn't enter the city last time, but not this time. Su Yu thought that he had to leave this place before Invincible appeared, or find a safe place to hide so that Invincible couldn't see him. If he could see him, all his previous efforts would be in vain. Invincible could see through him. Su Yu once again investigated the little furball in his mind that was secretly absorbing the willpower he had just rewarded. He thought, should I just strangle it to death? If I strangle it to death, wouldn't it be great? Once it encountered the invincibility of gods and demons, would it go crazy and kill the invincibility of gods and demons? That would be fun. Of course, the prerequisite was that it was a civilized master. If it was a warrior who came, it was hard to say. A warrior also had a sea of will, but the main battle strength was not the sea of will. Could the big furball of the god-devouring clan kill the invincibility of warriors? In the sea of will, Harry Ball, who was happily stealing food, trembled slightly. It was full of malice and fragrance. Was he going to squish the ball to death again? Dead ball. Forget it, let's eat first. Since he was going to squish the ball to death, I'll eat first. We'll talk after I finish eating. This time, I won't steal food. I'll eat it openly. Anyway, you want to ruin things first. Su Yu cursed in his heart and said unhappily, still eating? We might be finished this time. Of course, he himself had expected all this danger. If it was really that simple, then obtaining these few thousand heaven and earth mystic rays was too simple. He did not know that someone had really earned it very easily. Su Yu quickly judged the situation and opened a crack in the door again. After thinking for a moment, he turned into a dead spirit and walked towards the opening of the moat. At this moment, in the city, a black dragon suddenly soared into the sky above the city lord's mansion. It roared, I forgot to mention, the city gates are closed. There are a few connections in the moat that won't be closed. Of course, the aura of death is so thick that even the sun and moon can't pass through. Just because the sun and moon can't pass through, it doesn't mean that no one can. As soon as it said this, a few sun and moon flew towards the city walls. Understood. Be careful that Su Yu ran away from the moat. Su Yu's movements slowed down as he looked towards the city lord's manor and the black dragon that had fallen. Very good. He didn't expect that the dark demon dragon would actually remember this matter and even warn the others. This was great, the other side might have been sealed off. Good job. Su Yu gritted his teeth. Very good. If I really want to transform into an ancient city resident, I'll stay here for a long time and fight you to the end. If I leave, you can still relax. If you don't leave, I will transform into a resident of the ancient city. You will have a good time. Outside. Zhu Guangxin, Qin Hao, and the others gathered. Qin Hao transmitted his voice. Does he still have that ancient city shuttle token? It's useless even if he has it. There must be nearby experts rushing over from the outside. Zhu Guangxin sighed deeply. There are quite a number of god and devil experts on 9-Star Island. It's inevitable that the surrounding area will be sealed off. Therefore, it was really difficult for Su Yu to escape this time. At this moment, with the increase in the number of undead, Su Yu's whereabouts were difficult to trace. However, the ancient city was only so big. With so many suns and moons sealing it, it was only a matter of time before they would be able to find out one by one. Could it be that Su Yu was exactly the same as the real undead? That might not necessarily be the case. As long as the ancient city was sealed, Su Yu would not be able to escape. A large number of suns and moons would be waiting outside until Su Yu was finished in the ancient city or completely turned into a resident of the ancient city. Once he became a resident, he would be in big trouble. Speaking of which, how did he sneak into the undead? Actually, at this moment, many people were suspicious. At this moment, Qin Fong couldn't help but send a voice transmission. That guy is really ruthless. Really black-hearted. How did he think of swindling so many resources? It was too much. He didn't even dare to think about it. In any case, all of the Qin family's assets added together couldn't compare to this. Of course, it was still worth it to sell his grandfather. Zhu Guangxin was also speechless. Don't ask me, I'm not familiar with him. That fellow was really in big trouble this time. Zhu Guangxin quickly sent a voice transmission. We really can't. We'll kill a few more sun and moon undead on both sides and get some late-stage sun and moon undead to tie everyone down. Perhaps he'll have a chance to escape. Of course, they would be in much more danger. With so many late-stage sun and moon undead coming out, the other races who were not prepared to go against them could join forces to kill them. Right now, there were not many sun-moon undead that could join forces to kill them, so these people did not act rashly. However, if they angered too many race experts, it would be troublesome. If the law did not punish everyone, if they really killed them, the great Qin king would still be able to do it for them, attack these top 10 races and the ancient races' domain. The gods and devils could not wait for you to do this. You are courting death. Qin Hao did not say anything. That was a last resort. It was best not to anger those neutral races now. In the ancient house, Su Yu was deep in thought. The moat was blocked. This was a big problem. Before this, he had used the moat as a way out. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1856. 1856 Chapter 414 Don't panic if something happens 5. I can't get out. Su Yu muttered to himself. If he really couldn't get out, then he could only hide in the city. He still had some ancient houses to hide in, but they might not be safe. The safest place might be the city lord's mansion, but the key is that it's hard to sneak in. The city lord's mansion seems to be locked down. But this dark demon dragon hates me a lot. Maybe I can lure him to open the door again. How about I sneak into the city lord's mansion? Suyu thought in his heart. Actually, he wanted to enter the back hall of the city lord's mansion. Last time, he had gotten 3 shuttle talismans in the back hall. Perhaps the back hall would have the opportunity to let him leave. Suyu's heart moved slightly. He walked out of the ancient house again and blended into the countless undead. In the air, there were still experts patrolling. However, as the number of undead increased and the aura of death became denser, some people had no choice but to retreat into the ancient house. Suyu cursed in his heart. I lack an invincible divine talisman. Otherwise, if I were to throw one down and kill these tens of thousands of dead souls, tens of thousands of dead souls would instantly appear, and a large number of sun and moon dead souls would appear. It would be enough for all of you to suffer. There wouldn't be any. Otherwise, if I were to slaughter a few more sun and moon dead souls and draw out even stronger ones, I would kill all of you. Go to the city lord's mansion, or go to the innermost area and open up a house. I can transform into an ancient city resident, or I can hide from him for 3 to 5 months. Everyone will think that I'm dead, and then I'll leave. Unfortunately, the heaven hunting list had always shown his existence. Suyu's heart moved slightly. If I transform into an ancient city resident, will the heaven hunting pavilion still capture my existence? That's right. He had never considered this question. Were ancient city residents considered living people? However, it seemed that no ancient city residents had entered the heaven hunting list. It could be that they were not talented enough, or it could be that they were not on the list. This was very difficult to judge. Perhaps only the heaven hunting pavilion knew. If I can completely become an ancient city resident and not be on the list, then I can become an ancient city resident. Suyu thought in his heart. In the past, he felt that being on the list was quite impressive. Now, he only had one word: get lost. If I was not dragged down by this list, how could I be like this? Others did not even know if I was dead. But now, with the list here, I'm still alive. I can't even pretend to be dead. Also, everyone knows that killing a genius on the list is simply impossible. Also, there's the heaven and earth reward for killing. I used to think that it was a good thing, but now, it's really a scam. This is the best position to expose one's position. The heavenly battlefield doesn't seem to be too friendly towards geniuses. The geniuses' every move was monitored. It made them famous, but at the same time, they also carried a huge amount of pressure. Heavenly battlefield. Suyu roughly understood the rules. In fact, it encouraged geniuses to kill each other. If they killed one, they would be exposed. Assassinations were actually very difficult. This godforsaken place was a place to raise goo. Geniuses met each other, and it was easy to meet each other. This was proof. Without further thought, Suyu quickly followed the group of dead spirits to the vicinity of the city lord's mansion. First, he checked if there was a dog cave. Last time, the floating earth spirit hid in the city lord's mansion's dog cave. This time, he checked, unfortunately, there wasn't one. This city lord's mansion didn't raise dogs. Otherwise, Suyu wouldn't mind sneaking into the city lord's mansion from the dog cave. Of course, if he was discovered, he would be like a meat bun beating a dog. There aren't enough undead and they're not strong enough. They're not a big threat to them. Once Invincible comes, once I enter the city, I'll be in trouble. The ancient city had a mechanism to deal with Invincible. Suyu knew that Invincible had died in the ancient city back then, causing Invincible to not dare to enter the ancient city easily. However, that didn't mean that he couldn't enter. If it really doesn't work, then I'll crush little hairy ball to death. Suyu secretly made a decision and did not hesitate. As for little hairy ball being crushed to death, if you die, I probably won't live long either. It's fine. Let's die together. Isn't that enough brotherhood? In his mind, little hairy ball had set its eyes on those divine runes. It once again felt the malice. Forget it, I'll just be a stuffed death ball. If it thought about this again, it would eat his divine runes. Suyu turned around to take a look. A large number of experts had yet to hide. Instead, they were flying in the air, searching for his whereabouts. They were really persistent. Suyu wandered around the city lord's manor, but he did not find an opportunity to enter. Soon, he found a spare ancient house within the first ring. If it really did not work, he would lock himself in this ancient house for a few months. He wondered if Invincible could forcefully open it. If I can get out, I'll try my best to get out. If I can't get out, I'll have to waste my time with Invincible. Suyu made up his mind. If it didn't work out, he would have to find a place to cast his body first. There were a total of 500 strands of heaven and earth divine light, which was more than enough for him to cast his body many times over. He would have to wait until he grew stronger before coming out to kill some fellows. Becoming a resident of the ancient city. This idea rose once more. There seemed to be a difference between becoming a resident of the ancient city and becoming an undead. If a resident of the ancient city was strong enough, he could become a city lord or a guard. There must be some mechanism behind this. It was something that people other than the residents of the ancient city didn't understand. It's best to pull the dark fiend dragon off his horse and kill him. To actually have someone block his path of retreat, this was a huge enmity. Without the position of the city lord of the ancient city, this guy would definitely be beaten to death if he went out. The dragon clan had long wanted to kill him. Just as Suyu was about to turn into a resident of the ancient city, in the back hall of the city lord's mansion, the stone sculpture opened his eyes and was a little irritated. It was in a mess. Last time, he had mocked heaven's destruction. Now, as expected, the source of trouble was trouble. The death of this human and the man from the god-devouring clan would definitely attract eternity. Tian Mia had given him a few shuttle talismans because he was in a hurry to get rid of him so that he could harm others. But now, the trouble was on his side. What Tian Mia had done. He opened his eyes and looked at the entire city. The aura of death was boiling. A large number of suns and moons rose into the sky. After searching for a while, he saw Suyu hovering in front of an ancient house. He felt a little helpless. Should he send him away or let him be killed? It wouldn't be easy to send him away. Outside the sacred city, there were experts. He could sense them. But he could only care about his own land. Otherwise, he could forcefully send him away. As for if he was killed outside, the eternal war wouldn't break out in the city, right? The stone sculpture fell into deep thought. At this moment, the ancient god-devouring realm. Some small bubbles appeared around Big Hairy Ball again. Big Hairy Ball opened his eyes and fell into deep thought. When was the last time he woke up? How long had it been? Was the young man in trouble again? It seemed like he was still in the sacred city. Could it be that he was dreaming the last time, or that the time in his dream had passed ahead of time, and he had seen something ahead of time? Big Hairy Ball was thinking, did he not rescue him at all the last time and was just dreaming, and today was the day that the scene in the dream happened? In the dream, he saw the future. This was very normal. He had lived for too long, and it was not like Big Hairy Ball had not encountered such a thing. This was called predicting in advance. Then, according to the method in the dream, should I go and have a chat with the sacred city's guardian? Big Hairy Ball once again fell into deep thought. Speaking of which, was this the sacred city from last time? Why did it feel that, it was not quite like the last time? No, it was not quite like the dream. Big Hairy Ball was in a trance. This memory was somewhat chaotic. It could not be helped. Too much memory storage made it almost forget the passage of time. P.S. Recently, I have been in a trance. I only found out after having 2 silver bosses. I still have to thank some of the bosses for their silver rewards. I want to thank Yao Chang and the flower in full bloom in the waves for their silver support. Thank you very much. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1857. 1857 Chapter 415 Invincible Gathering 1. Inside the ancient house of the first ring. The moat was blocked and the city lord's mansion could not be entered. Su Yu chose to enter the ancient house to cultivate. If he was stronger, it would be easier to kill the spirits. If he killed more sun and moon spirits, he might be able to draw out the invincible spirits. If he wanted to die, he would die together with them. Su Yu did not want to die, but he was not afraid of death. Just as Madhwa and the others had thought, when they came to the heavenly battlefield, the geniuses were all prepared to kill or be killed. Was Su Yu not safe in Daming Prefecture? He was very safe. However, he still came to the heavenly battlefield in order to strengthen himself. He did not want to live under someone else's roof for the rest of his life. He did not want to be protected by someone else for the rest of his life. After all, the protection of others was given to him by others, not by himself. Heaven and Earth Mystic Light. Su Yu sat cross-legged and looked at the strands of heaven and earth mystic light in his storage ring. He calmed himself down. 500 strands. Can you help me complete the 72 casts? The current Su Yu had a physical body of 30 casts, and he was still short of 42 casts. The last time he used the heaven and earth mystic light to cast his body, he had almost cast 6 strands at the end. The stronger his physical body was, the greater the consumption. This was certain. Every time, his physical body would increase by 10%. His strength was not just a little bit, but a lot. The strength of one's strength required a large amount of resources and energy. The consumption was also proportional. It was a very normal thing. 500 strands might not be able to complete the 72 strands. Su Yu had this intention in mind, so it did not matter. As many as he could complete. Even if he could not complete the 72 strands, just a little more would greatly increase his strength. Without any hesitation, Su Yu quickly began to devour the heaven and earth mystic light. The breathing technique shook. His body seemed to be very thirsty as he quickly absorbed the heaven and earth mystic light. The heaven and earth mystic light was much more useful than the heaven yuan qi, and his digestion speed was also faster. Su Yu no longer thought about what was happening outside. As for turning into a resident, he had not completely made up his mind yet. He would talk about it after the invincibility entered the city. Those invincibles might not even dare to enter the city. An hour passed. His body trembled slightly. The 31 casting was completed. 7 strands of heaven and earth mystic light had been consumed. Su Yu continued. He did not care about what was happening outside. In any case, no one had come to find him. Moreover, it would take at least 3 days for those dead souls to disperse. He would talk about it after 3 days. Another hour passed. The sky was already dark. Su Yu's body trembled again. The 32 casting was completed. 8 strands of heaven and earth mystic light had been consumed. Time passed bit by bit. It became even quieter outside. The 3rd hour passed. Su Yu's body shook and his qi and blood surged. His qi was extremely powerful. With a rumble, the 33rd casting was completed and he had used up 9 strands of heaven and earth mystic light. The 3rd casting had used up 24 strands. Each time he cast his body, he would use up even more. Su Yu continued to cultivate silently. He thought of something and started to devour the heaven blood fruit again. This thing was also very valuable. 2 heaven and earth mystic rays were exchanged for one. It was used to strengthen one's chi and blood. Just because one's body had been strengthened did not mean that one's chi and blood strength could instantly catch up. One had to slowly nurture it. One's body had to slowly strengthen one's chi and blood, slowly accumulating it. With the heavenly blood fruit, it was different. One could rapidly grow stronger. Of course, this thing was not a super genius, but a super rich person. Using it was too wasteful and the price was too high. Su Yu did not care. The resources that he had swindled were used for cultivation. Once a heavenly blood fruit entered his stomach, his chi and blood seemed to burn up instantly. His chi and blood, which were originally weak, were strengthened in the blink of an eye. Rumble. Like waves, blood flowed rapidly in his blood vessels and body, emitting the sound of crashing waves. Su Yu was also shocked. What a strong effect. The Protoss really had a lot of good things. Without this heavenly blood fruit, it would be difficult for Su Yu to naturally strengthen his chi and blood without 3 to 5 days. A heavenly blood fruit would save him at least 5 days. Alright. It was a little expensive. Therefore, this thing was actually something that only super geniuses were willing to use. Normal people would not use it. Or, when the consumption was huge, it would be used as a holy item to recover. Su Yu was not using money as money at the moment. Why would he need money when he was in a life-and-death situation? It was the truth to be strong. The heavenly blood fruit was actually something that many sun and moon experts used. During a big battle, they consumed a lot of blood and chi. At the critical moment, they used it to swallow and recover their blood and chi to maintain their battle strength. There were also some that were used to assist in cultivation, but very few. Su Yu swallowed the heavenly blood fruit and discovered a problem. After swallowing it, it seemed that his body forging speed had become faster. Previously, due to the lack of chi and blood strength, the casting speed was somewhat hindered. At this moment, not long after, Su Yu's body shook once again. A powerful burst of blood chi erupted and he quickly completed the 34th casting. This time, he consumed 10 strands of heaven and earth mystic light, which was a huge consumption. Su Yu calculated for a moment. He was still short of 38 strands. The remaining 466 strands might not be enough. Forget it, continue casting. As many as he could cast. Just as Su Yu continued casting, a large number of undead lingered in the city. More and more of them were not Su Yu's doing, but Zhu Guangshan and the others. They would secretly kill some from time to time. At this moment, night came. The aura of death was boiling. Other than the heavy sun and moon, the other experts could not withstand the dense aura of death outside. Many people entered the ancient house under the protection of the sun and moon, avoiding contact with the undead. In a large ancient house. The door was open. Zhu Guangshan and the others were all there. Their expressions were slightly solemn. Qin Hao said in a low voice, "Do you think they've left?" Zhu Guangshan shook his head. There was a high probability that they hadn't left. How could they leave? On the ancient city side, some people knew that Su Yu had used the shuttle talisman last time, so the heavy sun and moon were constantly patrolling in the air. They were patrolling around the barrier of the ancient city, so Su Yu didn't have the chance to use the shuttle talisman. Moreover, whether he had used a shuttle talisman or not was a problem. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1858. 1858 Chapter 415 Invincible Assemble 2. The gap in the moat was blocked. The city gate was sealed. Outside the city, there were still a large number of suns and moons. On the myriad heavens battlefield, other than the experts of the military who needed to guard, many idle suns and moons had rushed over. Some of the suns and moons in the realms had rushed over to watch the show. Or rather, they wanted to fish in troubled waters and see if they could take advantage of it. Qin Hao said again, the Five Elements clan has secretly contacted me. As long as Suyu tells us the location of the floating earth spirit and ensures its safety, the Five Elements clan can provide some help and protection. Zhu Guangshan shook his head and said, don't count on it. Moreover, if Suyu really comes out, he will be tricked. The Five Elements clan isn't good either. Don't bother about them. Qin Hao sighed, thought for a moment and said, Suyu. I know that guy has talent, but I didn't expect him to be so bold. The invincible of the dragon race is about to arrive. If this goes on, Suyu won't be able to escape. Where to run? There was no way to escape. Even if the human race was invincible, the other races weren't invincible. If they insisted on protecting Suyu, perhaps an invincible battle would break out. Suyu's performance this time was too monstrous. His methods, temperament, talent, strength, and courage. This guy killed without blinking. Dozens of mountains and seas, he killed as he wished. Last time, he killed a large number of suns and moons. The number of suns and moons that died in his hands or indirectly died in his hands was even more than Qin Hao's. Could the 10,000 races tolerate Suyu's continued existence? Madonna, Zhan Wushuang, and the others, even if they were monstrous, when it came to madness, they were not as crazy as Suyu. This was a typical desperado. For the sake of benefits, they did not care about anything. Life and death were truly out of his concern. Qin Hao's emotions were very complicated. He wanted to protect Suyu. He believed that his father also wanted to, but, could he do it? Suyu had also entered an endless cycle. If he did not show enough value, the human race would not be willing to pay too much for him. If he showed enough value, the 10,000 races would also pay an even greater price for him. Because he was a genius of the many divine languages. As a result, Suyu had fallen into a strange circle. Unless he kept a low profile and stayed in Daming Manor, he could stay in Daming Manor for a while. If he stayed in Daming Manor for a long time, no matter how good his talent was, it would be wasted. Qin Hao looked at Zhu Guangshan. Did your father have any instructions? Zhu Guangshan smiled foolishly and said, my father said that my grandfather will protect him. If he can protect him, then so be it. If he can't, then there's nothing we can do about it. The Darming King would protect Suyu, but the Darming King was only the Darming King. Qin Hao nodded, he took a deep breath and said, if the human race goes all out, it's still possible for us to protect him. The human race is invincible. There are dozens of them. Even I don't know how many there are, but I know that there are 46 of them. If we really go all out, how would the half-emperor of the gods and demons dare to start a war with the humans if he hasn't officially become the emperor? The key was that not all of the undefeatable humans were willing to start an undefeatable war just to protect Suyu. Moreover, there was a traitor among the undefeatable humans. There was even more than one. This was the key. Everyone didn't know who it was. If this person suddenly turned hostile and suddenly attacked at the critical moment, it would result in the death of the undefeatable. Perhaps there was more than one. This hidden danger had already affected the entire invincible circle. Zhu Guangshan nodded and didn't say anything. His father, Zhu Tiandao, had told him about this. His father's intention was to wait. Wait for the Great Xia Manor to take action. Yes, the Great Xia Manor would definitely take action. Their goal was to clear these obstacles. Zhu Guangshan didn't know the specifics, and Zhu Tiandao didn't know either. The only thing he knew was that once the Great Xia Manor took action, it might make the situation of the human race a little better. While they were talking, the experts in the room were all shocked. At this moment, a huge golden dragon whizzed past in the sky above the ancient city. Even if it didn't enter the city, that powerful and boundless pressure seemed to faintly seep over. In the city, the little golden dragon, Long Wuyo, suddenly flew out of the ancient house and exclaimed in surprise, "Grandfather! The great elder of the golden dragon race! The invincible dragon of the dragon race had arrived." An invincible dragon had arrived in the dragon world, which was the closest to this place. Wuyo! The voice of the huge dragon directly entered the city and shook the surroundings. However, it didn't enter the city. The huge body of the dragon covered the sky and the sun, as if it covered the entire ancient city. It made the ancient city shine with golden light under the night sky. It was the radiance of the golden dragon. Long Wuyo's grandfather looked at the city lord's mansion with his huge dragon eyes. With the death aura and the ancient city's barrier, the huge dragon couldn't see very clearly. However, that wasn't important. He knew that it was the city lord's mansion. Black Devil! The huge dragon's voice sounded again. Open the city gates and let Wuyo leave the ancient city. A dragon's roar sounded. The Black Devil dragon appeared above the city lord's mansion. He said coldly, "Elder, you don't have to force me to open the city gate. I can open it, but I have to pay a huge price. As the city lord, I have to cooperate with the undead to seal the city. I don't have to forcefully open the city gate. Once it's opened, I'm afraid I won't be able to live for long. Elder, why do you have to force me?" The first elder of the Golden Dragon tribe was silent for a moment before he spoke again. "Let worryless enter the city lord's mansion to take refuge. The Golden Dragon tribe will not make things difficult for you in the future." The dark demon dragon fell into deep thought. With the war and chaos, the city lord's mansion could be considered the safest area in the ancient city, even if the sun and moon undead walked out from there. The dark demon dragon pondered for a moment. The Golden Dragon tribe was very strong. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1859. 1859 Chapter 415 Invincible Gathering 3. The strongest member of the Dragon Clan was the Heavenly Dragon Clan, followed by the Golden Dragon Clan. This was the Grand Elder of the Golden Dragon Clan, and it was believable that the Golden Dragon Clan would not make things difficult for him. The Dark Demon Dragon and the Dragon Clan were at odds, and the Dragon Clan considered him a traitor. If the two sides met outside, they would definitely fight. Thinking of this, Black Demon's voice reverberated, "Good. Long Wuyo can enter the city lord's mansion, but the other dragon race cannot. Good." The Golden Dragon race's first elder did not speak again and instantly disappeared in the sky. The ancient city shook. With the arrival of his invincible, at this moment, an even more powerful undead was about to appear in the city lord's mansion. The Golden Dragon race's first elder chose to retreat. If he really drew out the invincible undead, he would kill all the people in the city. The 10,000 races were not done with him. Just like the last time when the invincible state arrived at the Heaven Destruction City, they did not enter, but they lured out powerful dead souls. If the invincible state was too close, the dead souls would also send out top-level dead souls. Even the dead soul sovereign, the sovereign of the dead souls, was also an invincible state expert. A moment later, Long Wuyo entered the city lord's mansion. In the ancient house, Suyu opened a crack and looked outside the door. He looked at the dark demon dragon that had fallen down, then looked at the sky that had once again returned to darkness and lost its golden radiance. Invincible. The first invincible realm expert had arrived. It was not that he had never seen an invincible realm expert before. He had seen all three of them at once, but they were all humans after all. The last time the few invincible realm experts went to the Great Xia Mansion, their auras were restrained and they were still very low-key. This time, however, it was different. Even though they were separated by the ancient city, they could still feel that suffocating pressure. Formidable. What exactly was invincible? What kind of change did his strength have? Since ancient times, the only person who was invincible in the reversal of the sun and moon seemed to be Eposide. How much stronger was that invincible compared to the sun and moon? Suyu thought in his heart and did not dare to go out. He closed the door and continued to cultivate. At this moment, he had cast body 35 and was about to cast body 36. The heaven and earth mystic light continued to be consumed. Very soon, Suyu swallowed another heaven blood fruit. Rumble. This time, the casting felt more intense than before. Casting 36 was the pinnacle of casting for most top geniuses. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The sound of flowing water and the sound of waves were caused by the powerful qi and blood. The breathing technique used up a lot of yuan qi. Suyu's body underwent another transformation. Casting 36 was the limit under normal circumstances. The heaven and earth mystic light was also consumed a little more. After a long while, a loud rumble sounded from within his body. In the next moment, Suyu opened his eyes and his gaze moved slightly. At this moment, there seemed to be some changes. But it didn't seem to be. It seemed like he had only strengthened his physical body. However, Suyu felt that there should be some different changes. After carefully observing his physical body, after a while, Suyu gently exhaled. He discovered that there were changes. Outside of his physical body, when his qi and blood vibrated, there was an additional layer of defense. It was natural. No, it was formed naturally. Suyu tested the strength of the defense and felt it. His heart moved slightly. At least, it increased the defense by 10%. It was much stronger than the previous defense. It might not seem like 10%, but it was equivalent to one more casting. At 36 casting, one could still cast another body. This increase in strength was not small. 36 casting actually has such a change. Is it me, or is it everyone? Suyu was not sure if the geniuses he encountered had a high probability of having their bodies cast at 36 and had fought with him before. For example, Tendo had a high probability of not completing 36 casting. At this moment, Suyu's explosive strength had exceeded 55,000 apertures. He still had young apertures, divine runes, shock stacking, and many other abilities. His true strength had to surpass this number. Furthermore, having a physical body meant that he had reached this level in all aspects. At this moment, he was already stronger than the mountain and sea 5 overlords he had met in the vanguard unit. Of course, Suyu wasn't as strong as Modwa Na by himself. However, after a few more times, Modwa Na might not be stronger than him. His physical body had already reached the level of an ordinary 5th level of the mountain and sea realm. Previously, it had been a little difficult to swallow the blood essence of the 7th level of the mountain and sea realm, causing his physical body to shatter. Now, Suyu felt that swallowing the blood essence of the 7th level of the mountain and sea realm wasn't a big problem anymore. Of course, his goal wasn't the 7th level of the mountain and sea realm. His goal was to kill an invincible opponent. Although he knew that was just wishful thinking, Suyu still hoped that he could become stronger. From 30 to 36 times of casting, Suyu had used up a total of 65 strands of heaven and earth mystic light. Suyu was helpless. If this continued, in the later stages, the consumption would increase greatly. As expected, even if his harvest this time was astonishing, he might not be able to complete the 72 casting. Geniuses also had to eat resources crazily. Mediocre geniuses would not become stronger even if they ate resources. There was a limit. As for geniuses, this limit would increase infinitely. This was the difference between mediocre and geniuses. No matter what, they all needed resources. It was impossible to become powerful out of thin air. Invincible is here. He doesn't dare to enter the city. This is a good thing. However, Suyu knew that it might be different if Invincible was here more often. He hoped that Invincible would be slower. Even if he was slower, Suyu wouldn't be able to deal with Invincible. At the very least, he would have the ability to kill some people. Invincible, right? If I don't go out, I'll kill the undead here. If Invincible attacks and kills an Invincible, I'll make a profit even if I die. Have you seen Ling Yun kill an Invincible one? Continue forging. Devouring the heaven blood fruit. Su Yu was still forging his body. At this moment, outside the ancient city, the Golden Dragon clan's Grand Elder transformed into his human form. He stood in the void and waited silently. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1860. 1860 Chapter 415, Invincible Gathering 4. After an unknown period of time, the void shook. A moment later, a demonic god appeared. The Golden Dragon clan's great elder turned his head to take a look and said calmly, "You old ghost, you are really diligent. You came really quickly. Sorry for the joke." The person who came sighed. He was wearing an earthy gray robe. He sighed and said, "The Earth Spirit clan has no intention to meddle in anything. They just want Su Yu to hand over the floating Earth Spirit. That kid, the floating Earth Spirit, has gone missing. He might have been locked up in some ancient house and sealed himself. As long as he's not dead." The first elder of the Golden Dragon clan didn't think much of it. Wasn't he not dead? That was enough. The Earth Spirit clan's Invincible in the gray robe smiled but didn't say anything. Yes, it was a good thing that he wasn't dead. There was still a chance. He didn't want to come. After all, this was 9-Star Island. But, he had to come now. At this moment, in the 9 cities surrounding 9-Star Island, a huge figure appeared in the sky. It was a top-tier expert of the 9 realms, or even the Patriarch. He was personally guarding the entrance of the realm. His aura was extremely powerful. 9 top-tier experts of the 9th level of the Sun-Moon realm used the suppression power of the realm to cover the city. The 9 suns and moons linked together, forming a powerful defensive circle. These 9 had a high chance of being invincible at the entrance of the realm. The 9 suns and moons were also protecting themselves. Now that they were invincible, they had to be careful. Don't think that these invincible people were just here to rescue their own people, just to kill Su Yu. However, once they saw an opportunity, they would suddenly charge into the small world and destroy it. That was not strange at all. Of course, the small world had good things. Without good things, these people would not attack the small world. Moreover, with an extra small world, they would have more resources. At this moment, the 9 powerful suns and moons also sensed the arrival of the 5 elements race's Invincible. No one said anything, but they became more vigilant. The realm passage expanded even more, and the suppressive force began to spread. A large number of sun and moon realm experts entered the city, but their strength didn't increase. However, when the enemy arrived, their strength would be suppressed. They were very vigilant. However, the 2 invincible experts couldn't be bothered with them. Today wasn't their home ground. The invincible experts of the God clan hadn't arrived yet. The human race hadn't arrived either. The Earth Spirit race expert looked into the city and said slowly, "Elder Longyu, do you think there will be a war this time?" "I'm not sure." The first elder replied indifferently. "It was hard to say. But if Su Yu appears and is killed, there might not be a war." The many divine languages. The 2 undefeatable gods conversed silently. Su Yu was truly bold. This was probably the first Ling Yun that Unrivaled kept mentioning. At this moment, a ray of light that reflected heaven and earth came over. In the next moment, the sky seemed to be broken. The first elder of the Golden Dragon race curled his lips slightly. The celestial race was even more arrogant than the dragon race. A moment later, the void was torn apart and a powerful godly king descended. With some coldness, this godly king looked down at the ancient city and glanced at the two unrivaled experts. He said indifferently, "Suyu isn't dead yet?" The Earth Spirit Race expert said with a smile, "I just arrived too." Godly monarch Pingyu actually came personally. Pingyu did not say anything. He had come with anger. He had been deceived. However, he could not explain why. Zhan Wushuang's message to them was that he had not noticed too many abnormalities until now. All he knew was that he had been deceived by Suyu. This was the greatest joke. Pingyu was furious. Just as he was thinking, a saber beam reflected the heaven and earth as it slashed towards the previously indifferent Pingyu. From afar, he heard someone say coldly, "Scram, you're blocking this king's path." The void was torn apart by the saber beam. Pingyu's expression changed slightly. Not only him, even the expressions of the dragon race and the earth spirit race's invincible changed. Holy shit, this person was here. At the next moment, a powerful figure tore through the void. He held a saber in his hand. He shot a glance at Pingyu, who had dodged the attack, and said coldly, "Pingyu. What's the use of a trash like you coming? I'm here. You can scram." Godless Xia. Pingyu's expression was cold, but his heart was shaken. The Grand Xia King was here. The domineering Grand Xia King came over as he stomped through the void. He berated, "Scram. Blocking the way. Do you want to die?" The Earth Spirit race and the Dragon race really avoided him a little. This was one of the best unrivaled humans. According to the judgment of the various races, the Great Xia King was slightly weaker than the Great Qin King, but he might not be weaker than the Great Zhou King. He was definitely in the top 3 of the human race, but he might not be able to enter second place. With such a powerful unrivaled being here, they had no choice but to retreat. What was even more terrifying was that the Great Xia King had killed an unrivaled being. The human race had actually allowed him to come. At this moment, even the powerful Great Ming King was ignored by everyone. This was also an invincible warrior ranked in the top 5 of the human race. Even the combined forces of the Dragon race, the Earth Spirit race, and the God race might not be able to defeat the two of them. And at this moment, a wild laughter was heard. There's a good show to watch. Blood-red flames spread out, and the entire sky turned blood-red. The Great Xia King looked at the sky coldly and said coldly, "Blood Milo, are you trying to provoke me?" "Huh, that's not going to happen." The next moment, a blood-red demon king descended. When he saw the Great Xia King, his pupils constricted and he said with a smile, "It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Xia Wushan, go deal with Pingyu, I'll watch the show." The blood-fire demons loved to fight and kill, but they did not like to seek death. The emperor of the Great Xia dynasty. This fellow was too strong. It was only in the past few years that he kept a low profile because Xia Longwu wanted to attain the Tao. He was an invincible warrior who had been guarding the endless void for many years. What was the purpose of guarding the void? To kill. Sometimes, when he encountered an invincible warrior who was alone, this fellow would attack. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1861. 1861 Chapter 415 Invincible Gathering 5. It was a fact that the Great Xia King was very strong. Therefore, even the Demon King of the Blood-Fire Demon race kept a low profile at this moment. He laughed dryly, and in the next moment, he suddenly became interested when he saw the Great Ming King. He laughed and said, "Great Ming King, how about a fight?" The Great Ming King looked at him silently. *CK Your ancestors. Leave it in the endless void, believe it or not, I will kill you. Do you really think that I, the second in command of the Quest realm, am easy to provoke? On the celestial side, Pingyu frowned and said, "Since the two of you are here, let's not talk nonsense. Su Yu must die. He has already seriously affected the peace of the entire myriad realms. Peace. The great Xia king looked at him and said indifferently, Ling Yun alone has disrupted the myriad realms. Does Modwo want to die? Does Zhan Wushuang want to die? Does that old fellow from your celestial race want to die? Kill him, the myriad realms are at peace. How dare you? Ping Yu shouted, Xia Wushan, do you really want to provoke the celestial race? A blade light appeared. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. But it was silent. In an instant, the void shattered and time was in chaos. In the blink of an eye, a few hundred miles away, Ping Yu appeared with his hands behind his back. At this moment, his hands behind his back were already dripping with blood. He looked silently at the Grand Xia King, who was also looking at him. At that moment, the world fell silent. The other invincible existences left their spots to prevent themselves from being implicated. Even the blood-fire demon race's demon king instantly avoided them as he cursed silently. Xia Wushan was really that strong. He was indeed an existence that could slash through eternity. With a slash, Ping Yu suffered quite a loss. On the periphery, the experts of the 9 realms were feeling extremely nervous. There was still hope of dealing with other invincible existences, but against humans, forget it. Once they became invincible, there was a high chance that they would be killed instantly. That was because humans were invincible without being suppressed. That was what made them terrifying. The great Xia King ignored them and did not kill anyone. Firstly, it was not easy to kill an invincible existence. Secondly, there were other invincible existences present. Thirdly, killing an invincible person would immediately lead to a great war. The human race was currently unable to engage in a full-scale war. Fourthly, the human race had yet to calm down. Now that the war had broken out, it might cause the main faction to suffer heavy losses and completely hand over the leadership to the peace-seeking faction. Even so, he still attacked. Show his might. If he did not attack now, it would be even more difficult to deal with later on. The celestial race and the demon race obviously wouldn't come alone. He and the Daming King arrived together, and soon, more unrivaled warriors would come from these 2 races. At this moment, someone had already arrived. In the distance, the Dao King appeared. Not long after, the Xian King appeared. It was Xian Wuji's grandfather. After a while, the demonic qi overflowed into the sky. The Demon King of the Shi demon race had arrived. Unrivaled warriors gathered on 9-Star Island today. There were even more of them than outside the heaven-destroying city. After a long while, Invincible said coldly, Human, give me a charter. Great Xia King, Great Ming King, do you really want to be enemies with all the races for Su Yu? Great Xia King said indifferently, Charter? There's no charter. If you have the ability, enter the city. Enter the city. Many people looked at the ancient city that was suffused with death qi. Entering the city was still dangerous. Without mentioning the matter of entering the city, godly monarch Ping Yu had another godly monarch by his side. He said again, there's no need. The death qi will dissipate on its own in 3 days. Seal off the ancient city for 3 years. It was that simple. To Invincible, what was 3 years? Sealing off the city for 3 years would cripple even the strongest genius. Even if he did not die, he would completely become a citizen of the ancient city. Seal off the city. As soon as these words left his mouth, the great Xia Emperor frowned slightly. He wasn't afraid that these people would enter the city. The undead race wasn't that easy to deal with. However, sealing the city was truly troublesome. Right at this moment, the stone sculpture, who had almost no interaction with them, suddenly sent a voice transmission. His voice reverberated like a machine. Seal the city. Have you asked me? Ping Yu instantly looked at the ancient city and frowned slightly. He said indifferently, if you ancient city guards are willing to tell us something, we will naturally consider it. However, you have been guarding the city for many years. If you don't say anything, or if you hand over Suyu, we will naturally leave. They knew about the ancient city guards. However, these fellows didn't say anything. They said that they were guarding the undead. However, when the undead came out, they didn't care. In any case, it was very complicated. On the celestial side, they had some general knowledge, but they didn't know the specifics. They were also very interested in the situation of these stone sculptures. Ancient unrivaled. Almost all of the ancient unrivaled were dead. Not many died. These stone sculptures still existed. How did they do it? In the ancient city, the stone sculptures opened their eyes and looked out of the city. This time, they didn't say anything. In the next moment, they looked at the house where Suyu was. They saw through the house, saw Suyu, and saw that he was casting his body. 72 cast iron. Even among the iron eaters, there were not many who had truly completed 72 cast iron. This human had actually cultivated 72 cast iron. No wonder he needed so much heaven and earth mystic light. If he relied on himself, it would be difficult for him to complete it without hundreds or even thousands of years, it would be difficult for him to complete it. Multiple divine runes, heavenly aperture, 72 cast iron, 5 elements divine art. The stone statue watched silently and did not speak again. It closed its eyes and did not care. It was not unreasonable for heaven destruction to send him away. It did not care much before, but now that it looked carefully, it was a very troublesome existence. He saw the elegance of some ancient experts on this person. Outside the city, Invincible was also silent. The great Xia King and the great Ming King were somewhat powerless. As time passed, Suyu would probably be even more difficult to save. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1862. 1862 Chapter 416, Crazy Upgrade 1. In the city. Suyu was already feeling a monstrous pressure. The death aura in the city was boiling. It was as if there were even more powerful undead that wanted to appear, but they did not appear. It was as if they were ready to make a move. Clearly, the invincibility outside the city had made the undead clan feel threatened and pressured. At this moment, Suyu had just completed casting 38. Even if it was casting 38, it still made Suyu feel that his physical body was incomparably powerful. Normally, he would be happy and excited, but today, there was nothing to be excited about. He had seen too many experts today. The sun and the moon were high and heavy, and many invincibility experts had come. Suyu felt that he was very useless. Of course, he had only completed 1 year since Kaiyuan. Suyu had ignored this. So what if he had only cultivated for a short time? Would Invincible wait for you for 100 years or 1,000 years? If the time was short, it was also your own problem. Who asked you to be born late? It would have been fine if you had been born earlier. Therefore, Suyu rarely talked about his youth. Youth was not a capital, because Invincible did not give you this capital. I just didn't expect that I would provoke Invincible not long after I came to the heavenly battlefield. Suyu shook his head and sighed. Humans couldn't be too outstanding. Even if he died now, he could still leave a deep mark in the history of the 10,000 races. In a certain year and month, Suyu of the human race was surrounded and killed by many invincible experts. Note, Suyu is at the Lingyun realm. Look at how impressive it is. Killing Lingyun, one invincible expert isn't enough. There are so many of them. Can the later generations surpass them? Suyu was enjoying himself. He was worried and afraid. However, at this juncture, he was much calmer. He didn't regret it. He was a little helpless. He still had things to do, but it didn't matter. Without him, the myriad realms would still be the myriad realms. He took advantage of the fact that he wasn't invincible to cast a few more times. The strength of his body that was cast at 38 had already exceeded 67,000. The further he went, the faster Su Yu became stronger. Now that he had completed another cast, he could increase his strength by close to 7,000 apertures. It was terrifying, but of course, the consumption was also shocking. Su Yu didn't even think about it. Don't worry about it. When there were no more resources, he would snatch them, swindle them, and snatch them again. Strength was his own. His current strength was already close to the 7th level of the mountain and sea realm. However, Su Yu also felt the difficulty and pressure of forging a physical body. It was too powerful. At this moment, even if Su Yu was beaten by Ling Yun, he might not be able to break through his defense. His 38 casting was much stronger than the 38 casting made of iron. Even the iron-eating clan could ignore the attacks of the sun and the moon. Su Yu had reached the peak of the mountain and sea realm. Even the peak of the sun and the moon might not be able to beat him. This was the difference. Long Wuyo had entered the city lord's manor. Su Yu was calculating in his heart. At this moment, an invincible voice sounded out again. City Lord of Black Demon City, how about protecting the experts of the various races? If we bring the experts of the various races into the City Lord's manor, all the races will be grateful. Su Yu's heart moved slightly. As expected, in the next moment, someone said indifferently, "What? You want to stuff people into the City Lord's manor and draw out the powerful undead breaking houses? Was this the invincibility of the human race?" Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. He was not familiar with invincibility. Other than the 3 people from the Dark Han King, he was not familiar with the voices of the others. Who was this? Was this telling him that these people wanted the City Lord's mansion to protect the others just to force him out? Undead's broken house. A powerful undead would definitely be able to break the house. This was inevitable. In the next moment, the human who had just spoken spoke again indifferently. The undead have reached the level of quasi-invincibility or invincibility. They are highly intelligent and have forgotten about their future, but their intelligence is no different from that of a normal person. Daming King, is there any point in saying all this? Someone sneered. They knew who Daming King was trying to warn. That's right, Su Yu seemed to have the ability to hide in the ranks of the undead, but it didn't matter. The intelligence of the undead was too low now, even when they reached the level of sun and moon. However, when they were quasi-invincible or invincible, the intelligence of the undead would recover. The intelligence of a normal person. As long as he lured out such a powerful undead, Su Yu would try to pretend to be an undead again. Can you appear and disappear at any time like the undead? You can't. And such an undead could summon the undead or make them disappear. They could even communicate with each other. Su Yu had killed so many dead spirits, so it was fine if the experts of the dead spirits race didn't know. But since they knew that he was still in the city, where could they run to? This was the invincible plan outside the city. It was very simple, but it was very effective. The prerequisite was that the others had to enter the City Lord's mansion to take refuge. Last time, the heavenly river that destroyed the ancient city was completely neutral and didn't let anyone in. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so dangerous in the City Lord's mansion. However, the black demon in the ancient city of Xinghong was different from the heavenly river. He would protect others if he paid a certain price. In this way, there was no need to lose a large amount of the sun and moon. The late stage of the sun and moon was a treasure in any clan. They were invincible reserve forces. It was fine if they died, but no one could afford to die. In the ancient house, Su Yu finally knew that the Daming King had come. The Daming King's words were also a reminder to Su Yu not to treat powerful undead as idiots. These undead were intelligent. Su Yu actually knew this. The few early-stage sun-moon undead that appeared last time. were already somewhat intelligent. Seeing Su Yu, they all looked somewhat puzzled. Obviously, if Su Yu encountered an even stronger undead, he might be instantly exposed. Previously, in heaven-destroying ancient city, it was because he had directly teleported away. This time, he had no way to teleport away. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1863. 1863 Chapter 416, Crazy Upgrade 2. Dark Demon Dragon. Su Yu muttered in his heart. This dark demon dragon had formed a great enmity with him. At this moment, the voice of the dark demon dragon also sounded in the city. The city lord's mansion can't protect so many experts. Then there's no need to protect the human race. Someone chuckled. In the next moment, a blade light covered the sky and earth as if it had cut open the entire ancient city. At this moment, a cold voice sounded, "Then all of you can go and die. Black demon, don't take even half a step out of the ancient city in your life. No, if you don't, you'll die too." Silence. At this moment, 7 or 8 sun and moon spirits suddenly appeared in the entire ancient city. All of them had been sliced out by this blade. In the city lord's mansion, the middle-aged man who was the dark demon dragon's incarnation had a change in expression. The voice of the great Xia Emperor rang out once again as he said coldly, "Black demon, think carefully. You're just a puny 9th level sun and moon spirit. Do you really think you can act impudently just because you rely on the ancient city? If I want to kill you, who in the world can protect you?" The expression of the dark demon dragon changed again and again. He had underestimated the tyranny of the human race. At this moment, Xia Wushan stepped on the air and directly stepped on the defensive barrier of the ancient city. He instantly landed in the air above the city lord's mansion. His 2 eyes pierced through the aura of death as he looked at the city lord's mansion and the dark demon dragon in the city lord's mansion. There are too many people to protect. Do you want to protect the human race? The great Xia King looked down at him. Even though there was the barrier of the ancient city and Black Demon knew that he would not enter, he was still trembling. Great Xia King. It's a misunderstanding." Cold sweat dripped from the dark demon dragon's forehead. The great Xia King looked at him like this. His eyes seemed to be able to see through time and space. After staring at him for a while, he let out a cold snort. In the next moment, he disappeared. "Don't think that humans don't dare to kill. If you provoke me, I'll charge into a world and destroy it. Let's see how you can pass on your legacy no matter how much eternity you have." The great Xia King's voice was cold. "Don't bully others too much. I don't care about the matters in the city. You people outside the city, you'd better shut up too." Great Xia King. Buzz. The blade light reappeared. It reflected the void. The great Xia King's blade cut through the void and said coldly, "My grandson is about to reach the Tao. It doesn't matter if you stop him or not. I hope that my blade will see blood on that day. Today, don't force my blade to see the blood of eternity." He was very strong. The great Xia King was really strong. At the very least, none of the unrivaled beings that came today could defeat him. Moreover, these unrivaled experts weren't prepared to fight to the death with the unrivaled experts of the human race. The great Xia Emperor's overbearing declaration caused the outside world to fall silent for a moment. Of course, the great Xia Emperor also gave in. He didn't care about the internal affairs of the city. However, he also didn't want the unrivaled experts outside to care about the internal affairs of the city. This was perhaps the limit of what he could do. He could have fought a great battle to intimidate everyone. However, he could not die today. He had waited for so many years, but his grandson had yet to prove himself. He still had things to do. Even if Su Yu was extremely monstrous, he could not fight to the death with the invincible of the 10,000 races. That would break many of his plans. The Emperor of the Great Xia. In the ancient house, Su Yu was slightly shaken. The Emperor of the Great Xia had arrived. The overbearing Great Xia King. He was born in the Great Xia Mansion, and the Great Xia Mansion viewed the Great Xia King as a god. He was the same. Of course, he might not be a god now, but for the past 18 years, he had viewed him as a god. The Great Xia King was the spiritual pillar of the entire Great Xia Mansion, the leader, and the savior. Today, the Great Xia King had struck. Su Yu's emotions changed drastically for a moment. I don't need the invincible humans to save me, and I don't want them to save me either. Of course, he had asked for it. But very quickly, Su Yu suppressed these thoughts. He didn't want the invincible human race to erupt into a war because of him. Life and death were determined by fate. What I did, I would bear it myself. I don't need others to bear anything for me. Even if he died here, he wouldn't regret it. But at this moment, the Great Xia King and the Great Ming King had arrived. He always felt that the invincible human race wasn't worthy of respect. This was the change he had experienced over the past year. And at this moment, the two invincibles had taken a risk and personally rushed to the ancient city. Su Yu was a little touched, but also a little helpless. Don't touch me. I don't need you to touch me. Perhaps you need me to pay more. And I don't want to pay so much for anyone. I don't need invincibility to pay anything for me. I don't need the Great Xia King's blade to pay for me. Su Yu mumbled. If the Great Xia King came out for him today, he might not be able to get rid of the Great Xia Mansion's feelings for him for the rest of his life. He needed him to be cold-blooded and ruthless. Su Yu took a deep breath. The next moment, little Hairy Ball appeared. Su Yu would rather seek help from the other races. He would rather let the invincible of the other races think of a way. Even if he might die, he might be devoured by the big hairy ball. He looked at the little hairy ball. At this moment, the little hairy ball was still holding the God-expanding hammer. It was also staring at him with its eyes wide open. Su Yu smiled. Little hairy ball, why don't you come and save me? Save me. I'll give you that fragrant thing to eat. You're lying. The little hairy ball did not believe him. It said in a baby voice, if I can't eat that, you can't give it to me either. I'm a little, not a fool. I know you're lying. It had lived in Su Yu's Sea of Will for a long time. It knew that that thing was far away in the Sea of Will and could not be eaten at all. So, the fragrant thing was lying to the ball again. Su Yu's face darkened. Okay, even if I don't give you that, I've given you quite a lot of food recently. I'll let you come save yourself. Is that okay? I can't. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1864. 1864 Chapter 416, Crazy Upgrade 3. Little Hairy Ball was innocent. Really, I couldn't call Big Bro. I could only think of Big Bro coming to save me, but Big Bro didn't respond. Big Bro must have fallen asleep again. It thought. When it was at home, Big Bro would sleep every day. What about your mommy? Little Hairy Ball had said that there were only 3 in its clan. It, Big Bro, and its mommy. Of course, Su Yu felt that it was too small, so he wasn't sure. Perhaps there were other experts in this clan. Mother isn't at home. Not at home. What's your mother's strength? This fellow's big brother was a half-emperor, which meant that it was the leader of this clan. Even though there were only 3 people in this clan, it was still the leader. The little Hairy Ball's mother should also be an expert, right? I don't know. Little Hairy Ball shook his head. How would he know? As for his strength, he didn't even know where he was now. When he left that place, he didn't know anything. Now, he knew a lot more. He had learned a lot from Suyu. He had seen a lot and learned a lot. At home, he would sleep on his big head every day. What would he know? Suyu was also speechless. This fellow didn't know anything at all. I really want to strangle you to death. He didn't care about it, and continued to cast his body. As he cast his body, he said, "Do you want to eat the sun-moon mystic yellow liquid?" If he ate it, it would be better if it was a little stronger. This guy might be able to kill the sun-moon in the mountains and seas. Of course, it wasn't that he could kill it, but that he could burrow into the other party's Sea of Will. The Sea of Will of a sun-moon realm warrior might only be the size of a mountain sea realm warrior. That little furball could burrow into it. This way, killing the sun and moon would be easier. If I don't eat, I'll be bloated. The little furball shook its body. The last time it ate some sword chi and some flames, it had an invincible willpower. It was almost bloated to death, and it still hadn't digested it yet. I'm not eating anymore. Suyu felt regretful. He really didn't know how to enjoy himself. To think that you were a glutton, refusing to eat even if I gave you something good to eat. Exhaling, Suyu smiled. It's fine. If you don't want to eat, I will. The sun-moon mystic yellow liquid was used to strengthen the acupuncture points. The sun-moon strengthening acupuncture points were used. Previously, he did not plan to use it because if he used it, it would be almost impossible for him to merge his acupuncture points in the future. The difficulty would increase drastically. It doesn't matter. At this stage, why do I still care about these things? Eat. I will strengthen my acupuncture points. Last time, I was rewarded with 10 drops. This time, the Protoss gave me another 300 drops, a total of 310 drops. Then I will strengthen myself and strengthen myself. He would not strengthen his physical body, but his divine aperture. He would strengthen his divine aperture. With that, his willpower might reach the strength of the mountain sea realm. With the addition of the God-expanding hammer, Tier 4 divine runes, and his powerful Sea of Will, together with Little Hairy Ball, he might be able to kill the mountain sea realm with a single strike. As for not being able to advance to the mountain sea realm or the sun-moon realm, that would be a matter for the future. If I really can't advance, it doesn't matter. My physical body can also become the king. Suyu also went all out. He won't let me out, right? Then I'll eat everything. Even if you kill me, there won't be any benefits. As he began to cast his body, he began to devour the sun, moon, and mysterious yellow liquid. 1 drop. Boom. Suyu had just swallowed 1 drop when his entire consciousness dissipated. Just like the first awakening, he seemed to be floating in the air, looking down on his physical body. In his Sea of Will, Suyu had opened 196 divine apertures, and there were still 16 divine apertures that hadn't been opened. At this moment, the 196 divine apertures that had been opened were all rapidly absorbing the energy of the sun-moon mysterious yellow liquid. The apertures were rapidly expanding. The powerful strength kept these divine apertures expanding. In the sea of consciousness, willpower was compressed and condensed, lacking willpower. Without the sun-moon divine text to cultivate, it was very painful. However, it did not matter. When the divine apertures were a little stronger, Suyu took out an invincible manual. In the past, he could not bear to part with it, but now. Why couldn't he? He had even swallowed the invincible manual. The invincible handbook had a strong willpower attached to it, which was also the key to sketching out the divine text. Suyu had 10 books. Even if he had sketched out the divine text in the previous few books, it didn't matter. It didn't cause much damage to the invincible handbook, and it still had a large amount of willpower attached to it. When civilized cultivators cultivated, swallowing the willpower of the text of will was the most normal cultivation method. It was just that Suyu rarely did it. The main reason was that his text of will was a treasure, and he couldn't bear to do it. But now, Suyu didn't care anymore. At this moment, he was studying the manual from the great Han King and swallowing willpower at the same time. When his willpower was completely swallowed, this manual would be useless. The invincible manual was treated as a treasure by others, and Suyu was the same before. Now, he could do whatever he wanted. After absorbing a large amount of willpower, his divine aperture began to stabilize, and the willpower in his sea of consciousness was also being filled. He was now somewhat similar to Lu Wenyan. Lu Wenyan's sea of consciousness was also strong, but he lacked willpower, so he could not fill it up and enter the sun and moon. Thus, Lu Wenyan chose to shatter the divine text to cultivate. As for Suyu, he chose to break the invincible manual to cultivate. The master and disciple were each more wasteful than the other. Suyu was not afraid of being wasteful. Once a person died, nothing would belong to him. If it did not work, forcefully raising his willpower to the 9th level of Lingyun, coupled with the sun and moon mysterious yellow liquid to strengthen his god aperture, his willpower would definitely be stronger than some mountains and seas. If he could strengthen himself, then he would strengthen himself. As for the future, he would only be able to talk about it if he was alive. Suyu wasn't too worried about the invincible outside causing trouble and drawing out a large number of undead spirits. If that didn't work, he would turn into a resident tonight. Even now, there were still a large number of residents in the ancient city. Even if the undead spirits broke into houses, they wouldn't break into the houses of the residents. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1865. 1865 Chapter 416, Increase Crazily 4. This point had been verified in the ancient city of heaven destruction. Suyu still had a way out. To hope that the undead could kill him, dream on. Strengthen, absorb, strengthen, absorb. At this moment, Suyu was strengthening himself at a speed visible to the naked eye. His divine text, the strength of his sea of consciousness, and the number of divine apertures had all reached the standard of entering the mountain and sea realm. However, Suyu had always been at the 2nd level of Lingyun realm because he was compressing himself. Today, Suyu was no longer compressing himself. Instead, he was improving crazily. Even reaching Dao completion and swallowing some things could allow him to enter the mountains and seas, not to mention Suyu. In the blink of an eye, he was at level 3 of Lingyun. Very quickly, he was at level 4 of Lingyun. This time, Suyu did not compress at all. It was nothing more than a small amount of heaven and earth rewards. What was the big deal? He wished that he could become powerful enough to reach level 9 of Lingyun. He did not even give himself any rewards for killing mountains, seas, and the sun and the moon. He did not want to expose himself because of these rewards. That would be troublesome. Previously, he still wanted the heaven and earth rewards, but now, Suyu didn't really care. At worst, he could still compress it back in the future. For example, Zhao Li had no choice but to continue to compress his sea of will because he failed to advance, causing him to fall from the 9th level of Lingyun to the 7th level of Lingyun. The increase in his willpower was really fast without Suyu controlling it. After absorbing an invincible article of willpower, he quickly reached the peak of LV for Lingyun. It was just a little complicated. His willpower wasn't too pure, so it was fine. Suyu hammered with the God-expanding hammer for a while, and the vibration began to shake. After removing the impurities, even if he wasn't as good as a top genius, he wasn't any worse than an ordinary genius. He continued to absorb the next invincible article of willpower. He had 10 books, so he just needed to absorb them. Suyu finally realized that the sun-moon mystic yellow liquid was too strong. One drop of it took him a long time to absorb. Another drop would take him a long time to absorb. His acupuncture points were strengthened. Su Yu did not know the situation of the Sun and Moon realm. There was only one acupuncture point in the Sun and Moon realm. This acupuncture point was initially in the shape of a fan at about 40 degrees, but gradually, it became stronger. The fan shape that was strong to 80 degrees was the second level of the Sun and Moon realm. 120 degrees was the third level of the Sun and Moon realm. When it reached the full Moon realm, it would be in the shape of a circle. This meant that the aperture was truly at the peak of the Sun and Moon realm. This was the Sun and Moon realm. As for Su Yu, at this moment, his divine aperture had yet to become one. Instead, it was divided into many parts. However, at this moment, from the light spots, a small fan-shaped aperture appeared. It was about 1 or 2 degrees. This meant that his divine aperture had already begun to grow. It had grown to the point that he might not be able to enter the Mountain Sea realm for the rest of his life. The Mountain Sea needed to fuse into the aperture. His divine aperture was so powerful that the repelling force of fusing into one would be astonishing. As for Su Yu, he did not care about these things. To be honest, he did not think that the many divine languages department was that strong. He did not think that the civilized masters were that strong. His willpower and divine languages were mostly auxiliary. As for the fear of the 10,000 races, Su Yu couldn't be bothered. Wouldn't it be useless if he didn't become an invincible civilized master? That wasn't necessarily the case. If he didn't become an invincible civilized master and became an invincible fighter, he would still be invincible. It didn't matter if he didn't use the suppression of the human race. Lu Wenyan, Hong Tan, and the others all had hope. After devouring the willpower of another invincible will, Su Yu entered the 6th level of Lingyun. Very soon, he began to devour again. The Great Zhou King's manual was very powerful. This time, he was devouring the Great Zhou King's manual. Su Yu had comprehended the quiet, divine text in the Great Zhou King's manual. To be honest, it was very helpful to him. He had read the Great Zhou King's manual many times, but unfortunately, he was unable to comprehend the next one. At this moment, Su Yu was devouring while observing. Under such circumstances, a divine text was gradually sketching out in his mind, a new divine text. After he shattered the beast-like divine text previously, Su Yu only had 24 divine texts left. And at this moment, he sketched out another new divine text. Endure. Su Yu was stunned. What did he mean? I'm looking at your manual, burning your manual, and you want me to endure? What the hell is the Great Zhou King? First it was quiet, then it was endure. Are you an old turtle? It was both quiet and endure. The divine text outlined in this invincible manual was at level 2 from the start. Su Yu had done the same with the invincible manual. He had started at level 2. Endurance. Su Yu stared at the divine text for a while and couldn't help but laugh. Are you asking me to endure at this time? It's very strange. The divine text was actually a kind of comprehension and then birth. Does this mean that I have actually comprehended endurance at this moment? But I can't endure it. So what if it was a characteristic of the divine text? To be honest, Su Yu was still looking forward to this number 1 civilized master of the human race. The silent divine text from before was too useful. He wanted to know if the endurance divine text was useful. After comprehending it and trying it out, Su Yu fell into deep thought. He somewhat understood this type of endurance. F***ck, it was also the type of old turtle. Su Yu felt it for a moment and had a special feeling. If you crouched down and did not move, enduring it might have a very strong effect of concealing your breath. Together with the static divine text and the breath-concealing technique of the rotary turtle tribe, Su Yu was completely convinced. These 2 divine texts and a set of cultivation techniques were really turtle-shaped. Is the Great Zhou King an old turtle? Su Yu blinked. Through the divine inscriptions, he could actually judge some things. The great Zhou King's text of will had given him 2 divine inscriptions, both of which were endurance type. What did this mean? It meant that the great Zhou King was really very tolerant. And at this moment, in the direction of the East Rift Valley, a refined middle-aged man with long hair fluttering in the wind and wearing a long robe glanced into the distance. The invincible manual he had left behind had once again been comprehended by someone. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1866. 1866 Chapter 416, Crazy Increase 5. Su Yu. He muttered, surprised but also taken it for granted. The great Zhou King looked into the distance and smiled faintly. He did not care anymore. He could still comprehend the divine text at this time. He was not dead yet, and he still had time to cultivate. Sure enough, it was not so easy for a disaster to die. In the next moment, a figure appeared. Old Zhou, calculate the good and bad. The great Qin King flew over. Who are you counting on? The great Zhou King smiled lightly and said, Xia Wuxian's. No, Su Yu's. The great Zhou King said lightly, divination, it's just a small path. No matter how much I calculate, it's still not as good as the heavens. Even if I calculate until he dies, he can still reverse fate. It's useless to calculate. Calculate and see. The great Qin King insisted. The great Zhou King smiled lightly and nodded slightly. Without saying anything else, he stretched out his hand and a shadow appeared in the air. A human figure that was similar to Su Yu appeared. Very quickly, divine runes appeared one after another. This human figure was first filled with fighting spirit, then his body cracked, then the aura of death seethed, and finally, his figure shattered and turned into dust. The great Qin King frowned slightly and said, What do you mean? The great Zhou King said calmly, he wanted to fight one more time. He wanted to fight until his body collapsed and turned into a dead spirit, and then, he died. Died? The great Qin King frowned and looked at him. Is it accurate? I told you, it's better to predict the future than to predict the future. I predicted that when he died, he would really die. The great Zhou King said calmly, there are some things that you may not see as real. They are all like that. It can only be said that they are one of a million possibilities. Of course, if you use the heavenly mirror to expend your lifespan, you can see more accurately. That thing. The great Qin King shook his head, even if I look at that thing, it's useless. Back then, I looked at old Zhu once and saw Yi Batian. He saw that Yi Batian was invincible in the Tao, in the end. Let's not talk about it anymore. Old Zhu spent 100 years of his lifespan for this matter. Now, I can't even be bothered to let people look at the heavenly mirror anymore. I can just roughly calculate it. The great Qin King did not really believe in this. Of course, he could still use it as a reference for the future. Su Yu would die in battle. The great Qin King sighed. This was the result of the great Zhou King's divination. As for more, the great Zhou King couldn't calculate it. After all, being invincible wasn't omnipotent. To be able to predict the greatest possibility was already good enough. At this moment, Su Yu didn't think too much. With a rumble, the 39 was completed. And at this moment, the dark demon dragon spoke. It said in a clear voice, all living beings in the city can enter the city lord's mansion to take refuge. All races can do so. Residents do not have to use it. However, their identities have to be verified. Su Yu is not included. Please forgive me, Great Xia King and Great Ming King. I will protect the human race, but I cannot protect Su Yu. At that moment, the dark demon dragon still chose to protect the human race. However, Su Yu was not included. He had offended too many people by protecting Suyu. Moreover, Suyu did not dare to come. There were so many suns and moons around. How could he dare to come? In the city, Qin Hao took a step in the air and shouted coldly, "There's no need." As soon as he finished speaking, he instantly arrived in front of the city lord's mansion. "Since you're already here, what's the point of entering the city lord's mansion to take refuge? Let's just play outside together." He didn't enter, nor did he allow anyone else to enter. Once they all entered, the invincible ones outside would definitely bombard the city and cause a large number of powerful undead to appear. Then, Suyu would really be finished. At this moment, the sun and moon quickly stepped through the air and arrived. Someone said coldly, "Qin Hao, do you think you can stop everyone? For Suyu, you want to bury yourself, bury your big brother's son, bury the great Ming king's grandson, and bury the 3 great sun and moon generals of the great Ming mansion?" There were 4 high-level sun and moon generals in the human race, which was one of the reasons why few people provoked the human race. They were very strong. It would be difficult to kill these 4 people in less than 10 late-stage sun and moon. However, there were more than 10 late-stage sun and moon generals. Qin Hao ignored them and looked at the earth spirit race's sun and moon. 2 late-stage sun and moon generals from the 5 elements race also came this time. Qin Hao said coldly, "The floating earth spirit might be in an ancient house. Have you given up on the floating earth spirit?" The expressions of the 2 late-stage sun and moon experts changed slightly. Giving up on the floating earth spirit, unless the floating earth spirit was really dead, they should not give up. Now, according to the invincible thoughts of the outside world, if they really attracted a powerful invincible death spirit and the floating earth spirit was also in the ancient house, then the floating earth spirit would be dead for sure. What was the patriarch thinking? There should be invincible experts from the 5 elements race coming. Could it be that the patriarch had given up on the floating earth spirit? Or could it be that the patriarch could not reverse the other invincible race's intentions? After all, in the eyes of the other invincible races, it would not be a loss to lose Suyu and the floating earth spirit. The 2 late-stage sun-moon experts from the 5 elements race quickly contacted the outside world through the Heaven Hunting Pavilion sub-ranking list. The ancient city had been sealed. Unless one was invincible or the city lord, the voices of the others could not be heard. They could only use this method to contact each other. Soon, the 2 of them received a reply from the 5 elements race. The floating earth spirit wanted to be protected, but, the 5 elements race and the human race were unable to reverse the intentions of the gods, demons, immortals, and demons. They tried to buy as much time as possible so that no one else could enter the city lord's residence to take refuge. The 2 5 elements races sun and moon were helpless. This difficulty was extraordinary. The forefather was useless, and they would be at a disadvantage as well. In this environment, even if they cooperated with the humans, the 6 suns and moons of the later stage would not be able to resist the other suns and moons. The 5 elements forefather gave them another choice, or they could force Suyu out. That way, the invincible ones outside would not have to choose the method of the undead breaking the house. The difficulty seemed to be very high as well. Big amazing. Anyway, it is not a good choice. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1867. 1867 Chapter 417 Suyu is dead. 1. The Dark Devil Dragon wants to protect everyone. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. Perhaps this was his chance. Of course, were there any experts left behind? Not too strong. Shanhai realm was the best, or perhaps Lingyun realm. There were still many people in the ancient city. Apart from those foreign experts, there were many cultivators scattered in the ancient city. However, they were all hiding in the ancient houses, and Suyu wasn't the only one. However, with so many spirits gathered in the city, those people did not dare to come out. Now, the dark demon dragon was talking about everyone in the shelter. Would these people dare to come out? As Suyu was thinking, someone in the city suddenly asked in a loud voice, "City Lord, all these creatures, including us?" This was a Shanghai realm cultivator. At this moment, he opened the door and asked in a loud voice. His face was full of anxiety and despair. They were likely to be buried together with him. They would be buried together with invincible Suyu. The sun and moon undead had already broken through some houses and killed some living beings. If they didn't leave now, once more undead appeared and broke through the houses in the inner area, they would all die. At this moment, only the city lord's mansion was safe. At this moment, someone said coldly, "No. Suyu is good at disguising himself. Once he gets mixed in, it will be troublesome." Why? This time, another creature roared in despair. "This is a war between your gods and demons and the human race. Are we going to be the victims? You caused all of this. Why do you want us to bear the responsibility?" Unwilling. At this stage of cultivation, Ling Yun, the mountains and seas, and the small clans had expended a lot of energy and resources. On the battlefield of the heavens, those who were not strong were the weakest among those of the same level. In the end, they had to die together with the geniuses of the powerful clans. How unfair was the heavens! A living being cried blood and roared, "Our clan also has a large number of suns and moons. If we sacrifice ourselves today, the next day, our clan's suns and moons will also hate you. Although the large clans are strong, if we join forces, we will dare to let the heavens change the suns and moons." Ha! A powerful being laughed mockingly. A small race that wasn't even invincible dared to speak such big words. Join forces? Without an invincible existence, what could they do? The Thousand Domain Alliance was considered powerful, right? But without a single sun and moon, they could barely protect themselves. What else could they do? If the great races wanted to attack you, they would attack you. The small races were born to be vassals and slaves. These strong clans didn't bother with them at all. Since they had all died here, who would care? No matter what, they couldn't allow large numbers of living beings to enter the city lord's manor to prevent Suyu from sneaking in. Those who were ruthless even calculated that if they really allowed these fellows to enter, they would kill all of them later. They would rather kill the wrong people than let them go. If they didn't kill Suyu, everyone's hearts wouldn't be able to calm down. Compared to killing Suyu, killing some small clan's experts and geniuses was nothing. Don't be so noisy. Hide in the ancient house. If you're lucky, you'll be able to escape this calamity. An expert coldly said, "If you're not lucky, then count on yourself." Damn it! Someone roared and stood in the ancient house. Before he could finish his sentence, a ray of light flashed and killed the mountain and sea creature in an instant. On the side of the Celestials, the 7th level Sun-Moon Celestial, Jianni, had an indifferent expression on his face. He put away the weapon in his hand, which was also a longbow. He killed the other party easily from a distance. In the next moment, a mountain and sea undead appeared. The sun and moon didn't care at all. Now, there was no lack of mountain and sea undead in the city. Silence. In the entire ancient city, some people were frightened, some were angry, and some were desperate. Yes, it was difficult for the sun and moon to kill Suyu. Suyu was too good at hiding. But killing these mountain and sea Lingyun wasn't easy. The door of the ancient house was open. This was courting death. In the next moment, countless people closed the door. The door was open and the dead souls wouldn't barge in, but the living beings could kill their way in. The other party had shot an arrow through the air and killed a small clan of mountains and seas, causing countless living beings to be frightened and angry. However, there was nothing they could do. This was the god and devil, this was a powerful clan. If you spoke too much nonsense, he would be too lazy to say anything else. He would just kill you directly. In the ancient house, Suyu snorted lightly. These fellows were really ruthless to kill him. Of course, he didn't sympathize with those experts from the small clans. In this day and age, it was like this. The strong preyed on the weak. If you were weak, then there was nothing you could do even if you were killed. If you were afraid of death, then don't leave the realm and don't come to the heavenly battlefield. If you came, you would either be killed or killed. For these experts from the small clans to cultivate to this stage, they had killed many people. If he didn't want to be killed, the only way was to be strong. At this moment, Suyu's conviction was even more firm. Nothing could compare to his own strength. Only when he was strong enough to kill whoever killed him would he be truly invincible. His conviction was strong, his will was firm. His sea of will was stabilizing. Consolidating his realm for Suyu. A civilized master was like this. When you were firm in your conviction, when you were touched by something, it was possible for you to advance and become stronger. This is a civilized master. At this moment, Suyu officially stepped into the 7th level of Lingyun realm and absorbed the 3rd book of will. His physical body was moving towards the 40th level. At this moment, if he revealed his strength again and his killing was recorded, the 7th level of Lingyun realm might be recorded on the heaven hunting list. Once it was recorded, Suyu might not be the first on the heaven hunting list. That was because he did not rely on his own strength to kill sun and moon. Now that he had entered the 7th level of Lingyun realm, he might fall down. Of course, he might not. Suyu did not care either. Whether it was the first or second place on the heaven hunting list, it was not that attractive to him now. He had seen many things in the later stages of the sun and moon realm. He had seen Invincible, the first on the heaven hunting list, the reserve force that claimed to be invincible in the path of Tao. It was not even comparable to the path of Tao. What was there to be concerned about? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1868. 1868 Chapter 417, Suyu is dead. Asks for a subscription, too. His conviction was becoming more and more firm. In the sea of will, the divine text was resplendent. His divine aperture had expanded to the extreme. Drops of sun-moon mystic yellow liquid were consumed by him. 310 drops of sun-moon mystic yellow liquid were quickly consumed by him by a total of 10 drops. To the sun and moon, 10 drops was not considered a small amount. As for Suyu, after consuming up to this point, each of his divine apertures was as resplendent as the sun and moon. 25 divine runes formed a long blade. Suyu's long blade appeared and slashed down through the air. Whing! His powerful willpower shook the ancient house and hit the wall. After a while, the 40th casting was completed. At this moment, Suyu had completed the 10th casting. A day and a night had passed, and he had used up 140 strands of heaven and earth mystic light. It was better than expected, but of course, it was also very terrifying. At this moment, Suyu's physical strength had exceeded 80,000 apertures. Above 40, the casting of the body would consume even more energy, and the difficulty would increase. The time spent would also increase. Suyu half opened the door and looked at the city lord's mansion in the distance. Experts were constantly flying in that direction. There were experts from large clans, and there were also a few sun and moon spirits from small clans. Mountains and seas, you can kill. What about the sun and moon? The sun and moon spirits from the small clans gathered together. Their faces were solemn, and they did not dare to approach. However, they still flew toward the city lord's manor. There were already quite a few sun and moon spirits in the city. If they did not seek refuge in the city lord's manor, they would have to follow in the footsteps of the sun and moon spirits who destroyed the city. No one wanted to die. Especially since they had cultivated to such an extent. Suyu silently observed. At this moment, he was very strong. Of course, he was not as strong as the sun and moon spirits. However, at this moment, he should have no problem devouring the blood essence of the 8th or 9th layer of the mountain and sea realm. With the opening of his young aperture, there was hope for him to devour the blood essence of the first level of the sun and moon realm. Should he kill a few more suns and moons? Of course, it would be very difficult. Or should he kill some peak mountain and sea dead spirits and draw out more suns and moons dead spirits, entangling them and not giving them a chance to enter the city lord's mansion? With these thoughts in his mind, Suyu suddenly walked out of the ancient house. He transformed into a dead spirit. Instantly, a large number of dead spirits rushed in that direction. In order to stop them, in order to kill them, the aura of death soared to the sky. Suyu was very brave. He quickly approached the celestial race's team. There were only 3 celestial race experts in this place. Zhan Wushuang and 2 sun and moon experts. While the 3 of them flew towards the city lord's mansion, they didn't forget to check out some dead spirits and kill some of them. Since they were going to the city lord's mansion, they weren't afraid of more dead spirits. Compared to the time when the city was destroyed, they were much more relaxed this time. There were too many experts and the dead souls could not do anything to them. Moreover, only a mid-stage sun-moon realm dead soul had appeared. With this strength, how could they kill these experts? As Suyu approached, he did not dare to get too close. He quietly observed for a while and quickly retreated. There was no hope. Not to mention the 2 sun-moon realm experts, even Zhan Wushuang might not be able to defeat him. This was an expert who had killed the sun-moon realm. Very quickly, Suyu changed directions and quickly approached the demon race. From a distance, he chose to give up and run. The demon race's side was even more powerful. Moreover, Madhwa suddenly glanced at him, causing Suyu to be slightly shocked. He didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly left. Once he left, Madhwa looked at the flying dead spirit and slightly frowned. There was actually a weak connection between geniuses and geniuses. He had a faint feeling when the undead approached. Was it Suyu? He wasn't sure, but he didn't say anything. He said that the sun and moon must have killed Suyu, and it had nothing to do with him. To Madonna, he didn't kill Suyu himself, so it had nothing to do with him. The 2 sun and moon beside him didn't feel anything. Because Suyu didn't give them any sense of danger. Suyu soon arrived at the dragon tribe's side, but he still didn't have any chance. At this moment, he had already seen Qin Hao blocking the city gates and Zhu Guangshan and the others, but he couldn't say anything. Voice transmission definitely couldn't hide from these people. Gradually, more and more experts gathered here. The pressure on Qin Hao and the others instantly increased. Even Gu Shan stood up and said, "Qin Hao, you guys are blocking the way. It's useless. I'm not worried that I'll die, but if this continues, you guys might be surrounded." He was indeed not worried that something would happen to him. Quasi-invincible. Regardless of whether he was ranked low or not, he was still a figure on the Tao manifestation roll. This was an existence at the peak of the 9th level of the sun-moon realm. To be honest, it would be too difficult to kill him if he didn't produce an invincible undead spirit. However, he wanted to enter the city lord's mansion to have some fun. He looked at the stone sculpture. Qin Hao had yet to speak. Zhu Guangshan suddenly smiled and said, "Senior Gu Shan, you can go in." Not just you, other than the celestials, demons, celestials, dragons, 5 elements, netherworld, and heavenly abyss race, everyone else can go in and take refuge. Gu Shan was slightly startled. The other experts surrounding him also had strange expressions on their faces. "We can go in." Understood. Qin Hao also glanced at Zhu Guangshan. It made sense. It was useless to stop everyone. If they stopped the gods and demons, the invincible ones outside might not dare to make a move. After all, almost all the clans had 2 sun and moon experts, and most of them brought their own geniuses. If they died, it would be a great loss. Zhu Guangshan named the 7 great clans, more than 10 Sun and Moon advanced stage, and several top-tier geniuses. This way, the pressure on them would be less. Gu Shan laughed. Alright, you guys play. I'll go in then. These undead are indeed annoying. Their morale is so low that I want to vomit. He had no interest in playing with these people. Anyway, if the whole city wanted to die, he would probably be the second from the bottom. The first from the bottom would probably be the Dark Demon Dragon. After all, that fellow was the city lord of this place, so he had the geographical advantage. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1869. 1869 Chapter 417 Su Yu is dead. Asks for a subscription, 3. Since that was the case, he would not play with these people anymore. The experts from the other races were also getting restless. The expressions of the experts from the God and Devil races changed slightly. They could still suppress some of the smaller races. However, there were quite a few of the top 100 races here, and there were also many aboriginals. If they were not allowed to enter and were stopped, they would be in great trouble. These were all races that were invincible. In the outer area, Su Yu also smiled. The Zhu family members were still smart. It was useless to stop other races. They had even offended people. It was enough to stop these guys. Of course, it was still quite troublesome. Sure enough, at this moment, on the side of the God race, Zhan Wushuang said with an ice-cold expression, "General Qin, do you have to do this? If you stop 7 of our races, will you be able to stop them?" Then, he looked at Zhu Guangshan. He said coldly, "The Zhu family of the Daming Mansion, are they going to show up this time? It's not easy for the Zhu family to accumulate their strength. How many suns and moons are there?" "There are 3 suns and moons here. Once they fall, the Daming Mansion will have a tough time." Zhu Guangshan smiled and said, "Zhan Wushuang, why don't we take a step back? Let's stop fighting. When the ancient city opens, we will leave. We will take Su Yu and lock him in the Daming Mansion. He will never leave the Daming Mansion. What do you think?" "Nothing." On the other side, Xian Wuji said coldly, "The promise of the human race can be treated as a joke." Zhu Guang said with a deep smile, "Xian Wuji, we are allies. How can you talk like this? You are helping outsiders and not your own people. According to the human race, you are a traitor, a traitor." Xian Wuji had no interest in bickering with him. At this moment, the powerful warriors of the powerful clans had entered the city lord's mansion one after another. The Dark Demon Dragon was in the palace in the city, looking down at them. He did not come out and did not speak. The city gate was open. If you could come in, then come in. Anyway, he had given invincible enough face. As for not being able to come in, or asking him to deal with Qin Hao and the others, forget it. The great Xia King and the great Ming King were still outside. He did not need to provoke the 2 powerful warriors of the human race for such a small matter. For a time, more than 10 suns and moons were confronting each other at the city gate. Among the 7 clans, the Heavenly Abyss clan only had 1 high sun and moon expert, and the Dark clan also had 1 high sun and moon expert. There were only 12 high sun and moon experts. The Human clan had 4 high sun and moon experts, while the 5 Elements clan had 2 high sun and moon experts. At this moment, they were happy to buy time. 10 verses 4. 2 high sun and moon experts were buying time. The situation was in a stalemate. Kill, they could still kill. 10 against 4, they could still kill, but they weren't from the same clan. If they were unlucky, someone had to die. Who was willing to take the lead? For a moment, the situation was in a stalemate again. Su Yu watched silently for a while and didn't stay any longer. Luckily, the humans weren't stupid and didn't stop them all. Otherwise, they would be in big trouble. Now, they were much safer. Inside the city, there was a huge commotion. Outside the city, there were unrivaled experts suppressing the void. Divine light erupted from some people's eyes as they looked inside the city. The aura of death was boiling, but they didn't see anything. However, the news was passed on by the Heaven Hunting Pavilion. This time, the Heaven Hunting Pavilion had really made a lot of money. Qin Hao and the others had blocked the geniuses of several races and the sun and moon. If they attacked and killed the city now, they would lose a lot of sun and moon and the geniuses of their race. Was it worth it? At least, no one could make this decision now. It couldn't be worth it. Zhan Wushuang, Xian Wuji, Madhua Na, Mingyu, Dao Cheng. Using so many geniuses and so many sun and moon in exchange for Su Yu and Qin Hao wasn't worth it. At this moment, on the side of the celestial race, beside godly King Pinyu, a white-haired godly king said indifferently, "Great Xia King, do we have to continue this stalemate? How about this? This time, after killing Su Yu, I guarantee that when Xia Long achieves Dao, I won't make a move, and Pinyu won't." The godly king's words at this moment were still believable. On the demon side, the Origin Demon King also said calmly, "It's the same for me." Same. All of a sudden, 4 or 5 unrivaled experts agreed. As long as the great Xia King did not care, at least 4 or 5 unrivaled experts would not target Xia Longwu. These people could have been 100% targeting Xia Longwu. As a result, Xia Longwu's chances of attaining his Dao increased greatly. The great Xia King was silent. He did not say anything and did not reply. The white-haired godly king was getting impatient. "Great Xia King, you were the one who retreated in the end of the stalemate. Let's put it this way. 7 godly kings of our race have already gone to the East Rift Valley to chat with the great Qin King and the others about their lives. The demon race, the dragon race, the netherworld race, the heavenly abyss race. If he did not make a decision, he would really attack the human realm." At this moment, the great Xia King felt a little helpless to the extreme. He was very strong. However, he could not kill the invincible here. These races had joined forces and were now forcing them. On the human side, there would definitely be the resentment of the invincible. The hearts of the people were not so united. They still did not know who was the traitor. Once there was a great war. Perhaps the invincible would fall. For Su Yu. Let the invincible fall. If he could become invincible in the Tao, it would be fine. If he could not, then his losses would be too great. The great Xia King's silence gave hope to the others. Some of them also smiled. Step by step, he was being forced. The great Xia King would give in. His grandson wanted to become invincible. The human race's border was in danger. If he didn't give in, the human race might even hold grudges against him. It was already troublesome enough for your grandson to become invincible. For the sake of Su Yu, he had to provoke more than one invincible. Wasn't this adding more trouble to the trouble? At this moment, the great Xia Emperor was silent. At the side, the eyes of the great Ming Emperor flickered as he smiled and said, "Speaking of which, what about me? Aren't you going to give me some benefits? If not, I'm not weak either. Su Yu is still a member of my great Ming manor. If you want to kill him just like that, it's a little disrespectful." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1870. 1870 Chapter 417, Su Yu is dead. Asks for a subscription, 4. The white-haired godly king smiled faintly and said, "Great Ming King, are you deliberately stalling for time? Is there any meaning?" "No." The great Ming King laughed and said, That's why we haven't seen each other for so many years. If we can talk, then let's talk more. I'm afraid that the next time you die by accident, we won't be able to talk anymore. White-haired king. The white-haired godly king looked at him. The great Ming king was very bored. He was not the white-haired king, of course, he could call him whatever he wanted. Killing Suyu this time was a done deal. At this moment, there were a total of 12 undefeatable humans, 2 humans, and 10 other races gathered here. It was rare to see so many undefeatable humans gathered here. The 2 undefeatable wills of the human race could not change anything. And the human race would not be unrivaled again because there were many more unrivaled beings at the border. Therefore, these 2 were the limit. The top 5 unrivaled beings had left. If a few more unrivaled beings left, the human race's border would be lost. The Darming King did not care. There was nothing to be afraid of. To be honest, he was also helpless at this moment. Suyu, he and Xia Wuxian could not save him. In that case, let's buy that kid some time and see if he can think of a way to escape on his own. In the city. As Suyu wandered, he crazily swallowed the heaven and earth mystic light and continued to forge his body. At this moment, there were almost no living people wandering in the city. There was no one guarding the moat either. Would Suyu dare to go out? If he went out, he might have to face an invincible attack. Therefore, Suyu simply gave up. As for hiding at the bottom of the river, Invincible might not be able to find him. If he didn't have this fantasy, he might as well stay in the city and be safe. Is there really no other way? Suyu sighed. Was there really no other way? Did he have to force himself to stay in the city? Or, wait for Invincible to attack the city, and the undead would appear, and he would turn into a resident? This was probably the only way out. Let's just leave it at that. Also, let Qin Hao and the others give up. Suyu didn't want to owe them too much. If this continued, they might be killed. Of course, the battle hadn't erupted yet, so it wasn't that fast. And at this moment, outside the city, Invincible once again shouted coldly, "Qin Hao, don't be so stubborn. In 2 days, we will attack the city. If you don't enter the city lord's mansion, then I will bury all of you together." Invincible didn't want to delay any longer. It was a very boring matter. The result was set. This Invincible said coldly, 2 days later, we will attack the city. 5 days later, the others will come out and search the houses of living people. At that time, the undead will retreat and there will be houses of living people. Let the sun and the moon guard them. The arrangement was clear. 2 days later, they would attack the city and draw out the powerful undead to massacre the city. 5 days later, the undead would retreat. Naturally, there wouldn't be many who were still alive. At that time, they would guard these few houses. If Suyu wasn't dead, he would definitely be among them. Therefore, Suyu would definitely not be able to escape. Disguise as an undead? Would it work? Did you think that the undead that were drawn out by the Invincible siege were idiots? They would see through you at a glance. If they drew out the Invincible undead, Suyu wouldn't be able to hide it from the Invincible, and naturally, he wouldn't be able to hide it from the Invincible undead either. Therefore, he would definitely die. This was his final warning. 2 days later, they would attack the city. And at this moment, the great Xia King and the great Ming King were both silent. Suyu didn't feel disappointed at all. Instead, he heaved a sigh of relief. Very good, this meant that the great Xia King and the great Ming King wouldn't be able to hold on any longer. Being silent also meant that Qin Hao and the others would give up after 2 days. There was no other way. For someone as proud as the great Xia Emperor to remain silent meant that he was definitely in trouble. Suyu made a rough guess. It was nothing more than threatening the border and using Xia Longwu as a threat. It was a very simple matter. In comparison, Suyu was not surprised that he could not compare to the comfort of the entire human realm. There was nothing to be disappointed about. He still had to remember the favor. If it were not for the arrival of the two undefeatable beings, perhaps the other undefeatable beings would have attacked the city. At least, they had bought him some time. 2 days. Suyu smiled. It was all right. Then I will continue cultivating and convert myself into an ancient city resident. When you come out in 5 days, the so-called search of living rooms does not include the ancient city residents, right? As for what kind of trouble the residents of the ancient city were in, he didn't care. Suyu found a room and quickly burrowed into it. At this moment, he didn't think about anything else. Cultivate. The stronger he was, the better. 3 hours later, the 41 casting was completed, and the heaven and earth mystic light was consumed again. This time, a total of 18 strands were consumed. It was a little scary. 5 hours later, the 42 casting was completed, and 20 strands were consumed. It was even scarier. 8 hours later, the 43 casting was completed and 22 strands were consumed. The 3 casting consumed 60 strands. The further it went, the scarier it became. 12 hours later, the 44 casting was completed and 24 strands were consumed. At this moment, 28 hours had passed. Suyu had only completed 4 casting and consumed 84 strands. Adding the 140 strands from before, he had consumed 224 strands, which was close to half. It was still all right, he had completed 14 casts. Suyu was still satisfied. As for Suyu's physical body, the strength of his acupuncture points had reached 120,000. At this moment, he should have officially surpassed Madonna, who was at the 7th level of Lingyun. After calculating, Suyu's physical strength could be considered to be at the 6th level of the soaring cloud realm, and his level as a civilized master was at the 7th level of Lingyun, which was the same level as Madonna back then. As for the heaven and earth mystic light, there was still quite a bit left. Although it had already been used up more than 20 strands once, which might only be enough for 10 times, it might not even be enough, but it was not a big deal. Suyu still had quite a number of treasures. Even if all of them were used up, he still had a large amount of sun-moon mystic yellow liquid left. If there was a chance, he might be able to find the heaven hunting pavilion to exchange for it. With another 1,000 strands, Suyu could definitely complete the 72 casting. There was a high probability that he would not even need that much. In any case, he had swindled all of the casting resources that he used for cultivation into this scam. You're tuning into the Hanli's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1871. 1871 Chapter 417 Suyu is dead. Asks for a subscription, 5. As a result, many resources for the next 9 transformations of Lingyun were obtained. At this moment, there were still more than 10 hours before the invincible siege. Perhaps he could still complete the 45 casts. Suyu did not delay and continued to cast his body. However, this time, he was doing something else. Night had fallen. Suyu threw out another jade talisman, which was stained with his own blood. Very quickly, a dead spirit appeared. He was writing and drawing, but this time, something unexpected happened. With a boom, the dead spirit directly exploded. Suyu's eyes moved slightly. Just now, he felt a large amount of death aura invading him from the ancient house, but it was unable to convert him. This dead spirit actually exploded. Suyu was very surprised. What was this? Just as he was thinking, another dead spirit appeared. It was a mountain and sea realm one. At this moment, this mountain and sea realm dead spirit had obtained a jade talisman and started to write and draw. After a while, an even stronger death aura began to corrode from the ancient house. Suyu's resistance to death aura was very strong. Moreover, he had not used any of the 9 halos he had in heaven destroying ancient city. At this moment, the death aura could not invade him. As for Su Yu converting himself, that death aura also belonged to him and was not from outside. Boom! The mountain and sea undead suddenly exploded. Su Yu was stunned. What was this? I did not kill him. Logically speaking, this was the 3rd time he had thrown out a jade talisman. After 3 times, there was no need for continuous time. At this moment, he should be able to turn into a resident. After a while, an early-stage sun and moon undead appeared. He glanced at Su Yu and continued with his work. He carved Su Yu's appearance on the wooden token. The carving was a little difficult. At the same time, in the back hall of the city lord's mansion, the stone statue opened his eyes and looked over. His gaze flickered. Turn into a resident. This was probably the first genius on the heaven roll since ancient times. The first person on the heaven roll had chosen to turn into a resident of the ancient city. At this moment, he saw the sun and moon being carved. The stone statue watched silently, thinking, how should I choose? At the same time, a dead spirit appeared under his feet. This dead spirit's eyes were very bright as he looked over, he smiled faintly and said, very interesting. This is, a peerless genius. He actually chose to switch, interesting. Too interesting. According to the ancient rules, he is alive and responsible for guarding us. If he dies, he will be one of us. The stone sculpture did not say anything. This undead was very powerful. At this moment, he looked out of the city, he said with a smile, it's really interesting. It seems that a great war is going to break out among all the races in the universe. Even such a genius has been forced into the sacred city and turned into a living dead, what a pity. I feel sorry for them. The dead spirit looked at the stone statue, Xinghong, don't try to stop him. This is his own choice. We didn't force him. The sacred city is suppressing us, so we have a chance to survive. This was the agreement back then. He chose it himself, didn't he? The stone statue looked at Su Yu and was silent for a long time. Then, it said calmly, before he died, he was not a dead spirit. You can't kill him directly, otherwise, I will stop him. Of course. The dead spirit smiled and said, he will be alive, but I saw the death aura surrounding him. The death aura is almost attacking his heart. Sooner or later, he will turn into a real dead spirit. Xinghong, this is my territory. He is dead, and he is my subordinate. I will value him very much. The dead spirit laughed, oh right, he has entered the heaven hunting list, right? Number 1 on the heaven hunting list. Good boy. The undead smiled brightly. I can roughly guess that this body is terrifyingly powerful. How many times has he cast his body? He even opened the heavenly cycle aperture point, such a genius is rarely seen even in the ancient times. Am I making a profit this time? Xinghong ignored him. The undead laughed again. The guys outside are clamoring to attack the city. Did you hear that? When the city is attacked, it will be time for me to appear. I haven't come out to take a breather for many years. Although I'm an undead, the undead world is really terrible. It's unbearable. I'll kill a few living beings to replenish my resources. I've used up too many undead. Xinghong closed his eyes. He ignored him. The invincible one outside the city might be looking for trouble. Su Yu had become a resident. Once he died, with his talent, he might be able to retain his memories. Of course, the chances were slim, but if he became an undead spirit, it wouldn't be long before he became an undead sovereign. There was hope for him to regain his memories. If that was the case, then, when the undead spirit broke through the sacred city, these fellows would be plagued with trouble. He didn't stop them. He was colder-blooded than heaven's destruction, and he had to follow the rules. He was a stone statue, and he only followed the rules. Since Su Yu had chosen this path, at least he was still alive. He couldn't do anything, and he didn't want to do anything. From now on, the living world would have one less peerless genius. Turning into a resident would take a few hundred years, or at least a few days. Su Yu would definitely die, corroded by the death aura. As for Su Yu turning into the death aura, he saw it, but he wasn't sure if it would be useful. At this moment, the sun and moon undead spirit carved Su Yu. After a while, the sun and moon undead spirit seemed to be unable to withstand it, and the aura of death shook. At this moment, a slightly different undead spirit appeared. It glanced at Su Yu, and Su Yu's eyes moved slightly. His heart trembled. This was definitely not the gaze of the undead spirit. This was the gaze of wisdom. The undead spirit ignored him and began to carve. Su Yu only felt an endless amount of aura of death surrounding him. From the top of his head down, it covered his entire body. In the blink of an eye, it covered his internal organs and everything else, except for the small area of his heart. This was the living dead. When that small area of his heart was covered, Su Yu became a complete undead. The undead took a look at his heart. There was a hint of suspicion in his eyes. He did not look at it anymore. He smiled. Yes, he smiled. The undead instantly disappeared. However, an ancient voice sounded in Su Yu's ears, "After you die, I will personally come and receive you." Su Yu's heart shook violently. It can speak. The undead can speak. He will personally come and receive me. What does that mean, to receive me and become an undead? Su Yu's heart was filled with countless doubts. This was a talking undead. What kind of strength was it? Invincible? Or was it a sun-moon pinnacle? And at this moment, he swiftly converted the aura of death, only to realize that the conversion efficiency was frighteningly low. Of course, being able to convert some of it allowed him to heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, at his heart, that vile being also let out a sigh, as if it was very troublesome. If the conversion speed couldn't keep up with the speed of the corrosion of the aura of death, Su Yu would be dead for sure. This brat, sigh. He had nothing to say, and the little guy was also helpless. Perhaps this was his only way to survive, to truly live towards death. Su Yu didn't care about this. When his transformation was complete, his heart trembled slightly. At this moment, the corrosive power of the ancient city had disappeared. Only the death aura in his body was spreading. The ancient house and the ancient city no longer corroded him. Outside the door, Su Yu staggered out. This time, he didn't reverse the aura of death, but the undead seemed to see him as if they didn't see him. Some of the weaker undead even took a detour when they saw him. They were somewhat afraid of him. He seemed to be of a higher level than this undead. Su Yu felt a sense of emptiness in his heart. Had he become a living dead? Even though he had long been prepared, even though he had reversed the situation countless times before, at this moment, it was still difficult for him to hide his disappointment. I have become a resident of the ancient city. A living dead. At this moment, the hearts of all the people in the myriad realms shook. The list shook violently. The first place on the list was Su Yu. His name gradually faded away, and after a moment, it appeared once again. Very quickly, it faded away again. This happened 3 times, and in the end, the name that belonged to Su Yu completely disappeared. Everyone was flabbergasted. They were indescribably shocked. Everyone was stunned. Su Yu was dead. How was that possible? That was because in the past few hundred years, no genius on the list had ever chosen to become a resident of the ancient city. They didn't know that in this way, he would disappear from the list. They didn't care about this. They only knew that Su Yu's name had disappeared from the heaven hunting list. First on the heaven hunting list, Madonna. The entire list, 630 people, no longer had Suyu. The heavens shook. At this moment, the Heaven Hunting Pavilion headquarters shook. Suyu is dead. How did he die? Didn't they say that the siege hadn't started yet? Why did he die? This was simply unbelievable.